Thanks. Convening the Select Board meeting, Town of Charlotte, January 8th, 6 p.m. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. It is a new year. Adjustments to the agenda. Any public comments? Okay, we're into 6:05. We're ahead of schedule already. Clark Hensdale III, highway permit on Heinsberg Road. So this was brought up at the last meeting, and it wasn't clear what was wanted. So if you, I think Fritz had questions, I'm not sure who else, so, and there's a discussion whether the current road stays, and is there going to be another road? So you want to summarize for us? And
Sure.
oh, it's not for amplification, only for the people listening at home.
I see.
But you can pull that out. You can just sit down and, if you'd like.
I'll stand.
Okay.
This is, curb cut is to serve the excluded land from the conserved bean farm. When the bean farm was conserved in 2011, there was 25 acres on the south side of the road that wasn't included, and that 25 acres sat behind the 5-acre lot with trailer on it. The future occupant, Eric Buttery, is here, so his crew will probably be actually building this. So because the trailer lot is in a different name than the bean farm, which is in a different name than my name, they're all separate properties. But apropos to the goals of the towns in terms of curb cuts, we were looking for the future opportunity to share the curb cut with the adjoining property, the trailer lot. So Dean had suggested, I don't know if this is still your current suggestion, that perhaps we could approve the curb cut for the 2 new lots plus use by the farm and allow it to be used in the future to hook on the trailer lot at some point in the future. The trailer lot is not part of the subdivision request, and the subdivision request is by Nordic Farms that owns the bean farm, and the trailer lot is in the Clark Hinsdale Jr. Trust.
Can I ask, is the trailer access on that map that we have in front of us? Because I see the proposed curb cut.
Further, yeah, there you go. That's the trailer access that Dean just pointed to.
Oh,
and you can
I
see the 5-acre lot.
Yeah.
And then the wider lot that goes off the bottom of the screen is the 25 acres that was excluded from land conservation.
Okay.
So are you requesting that the curb cut gets approved for lot 3 and 2, and in the future, if the trailer lot decides to use that, they'd throw up the other curb cut?
Absolutely.
That would be part of the
Yes.
request.
My question was, to serve an existing lot to the east, to which there's a couple. So can we specify the trailer lot with some nomenclature, its lot ID number?
Doesn't have a number.
1824 Heinsberg Road?
Yes, it has a number, excuse me.
No, you meant a tax parcel number, right? Or-
Some method of identifying it so somebody in the future doesn't decide that this big lot to the east wants to get served by, I don't know.
Yeah, the trailer's 1824. The other property doesn't have a 911 address yet. And that would be new lots, new residential lots 2 and 3, and then the farm lot, which is not developable. It's conserved.
Which is called the third lot in the description. Third lot is number 1, and the residential lots
Or 2 and 3.
are 2 and 3.
Okay, we should use the numbers. Fritz is right.
So you're asking for approval for curb cut lots 2 and 3,
Residential lots 2 and 3.
residential lots. And what?
And future use for 1849?
1824
1824
Heinsberg.
Heinsberg Road.
But that exists right now.
No, to use this curb cut if they throw up their existing curb cut in the future.
The one that we're about to vote on. You mean the residence curb cut for lots 2 and 3, they could decide not to use that?
They could decide to use it if they throw up their existing driveway in the future.
So will there be 2 cuts or 1?
There's currently an existing driveway,
Which is the trailer one,
which in the future would get thrown up and erased.
thrown up,
If-
deleted, yep.
If they want to come on to the one that we're about to
Okay.
approve.
Which is true, but the only problem with that is, once you get 3 lots, it needs to be a private road and needs to be named. 911 addresses have to be assigned.
I guess that would be part of it too.
I mean, I'm just saying that if it goes that far as to have the trailer lot go into this access, which is going to 2 parcels. Once you have an access that goes to more than 2 parcels, it becomes 911 addressable.
Yeah, I think most recently we
We,
changed
we,
the
we
name
did,
for
we,
Tronos
right, but we
private
also
road.
did the,
State Park Road, State Park Access, the Summit Road.
the Bryn Farm
We did
with,
Oh, yeah.
with Elizabeth, or, Hinsdale, Irene. Because she had, I think it was Irene that had has the driveway that Bryn was using. And there were 2 lots already serving that, and they said once they applied for their, bed and breakfast, it was gonna be 3 lots being served by that right of way, and it was going to have to be, turned into a private road with 911 addresses.
I think that was a different issue in that case, but you're right. If 1824 Heinsberg ends up using that right of way, it would need to be a named road.
But we don't have to deal with that right now, do we?
Just
Can we?
As I think it would just have to be a condition of approval of this curb cut that we say that.
Do you have in mind the motion that we want to?
Sure.
I mean, well, let's put it this way to Clark. What is your preference at this time? I mean, are you happy with having a motion to approve a curb cut to access lots 2 and 3?
Yes.
Just strike the last sentence.
And just strike everything else and just say an access to access lot 2 and 3?
Yes, and then if the trailer was to come on, there would be a request, and there would be a name, and you and the kids and your wife can have breakfast conversation over what to name the road.
And that would be at a separate discussion. So
Yes.
that's all we're going to do right now?
I'm just trying to get through this.
To the, like, coming up.
Yes, they would be
to here.
approving this road back to the lots,
Oh, gotcha.
with nothing to do with this now.
Nothing to do, okay.
I mean, I'm assuming was your proposal was to leave the trailer lot pretty much the way it is and get an access road to the 2 lots.
Yes, yes.
I think
I mean, I didn't agree with some of the things on the,
it just seems
On the
in
administrator's report,
general,
but-
the town tries to limit the amount of curb cuts. And if there's a willingness to not have 2 curb cuts that close to each other, I think we should put it in the motion to encourage that to be a possibility in the future.
Gotcha.
It doesn't have to be.
No, that's fine.
But then that becomes,
But then there will be conditions if it does get approval to be granted to have the mobile home access on this new curb cut, then it would have to go through the
Road naming.
the road naming,
Yeah, which
the
the select board
911
does. Yeah,
designation.
yeah. So I make a motion to approve highway access permit 17-11. To include the ability for the property at 1824 Heinsberg Road to throw up their existing driveway and create an access off of this curb cut in the future.
if requested at a later date.
Right, if requested, and
Well, okay, I would have made a motion to approve the curb cut to lots 2 and 3 with the ability to future access the mobile home.
I think that's what I just said.
Want to read us the motion, Kathy? Did you get it?
Matt Krasnow approves the highway access permit, HAP-1711, to include the ability at a future time for 1824 Heinsberg Road to throw up an existing access / driveway and to hook onto the new curb cut if requested. And Frank would like to approve a motion to lots 2 and 3 with the possibility of a future.
So when you
I think Matt's was fine.
Right, it
I think,
identifies
yeah,
this.
no, I think Matt's was fine because he approved the curb cut as was presented pretty much.
Is that
And then
seconded?
added.
You second
I'll
it?
second it.
Good.
Just to ask, it can be used for an agricultural access for lot 1? It's not, I mean, there's no prohibition against using it for that?
Yeah, I kind of always do that, just,
Okay.
you know.
And what my understanding of the motion is that if the mobile home lot were to use that access, it doesn't require another permit, it just requires a 911 road naming.
That's the intent.
Yep, okay.
So we're good
Right,
with
and any upgrades that would be required to
Yeah.
serve the 3 lots.
Currently, we don't require any change of the road
Okay.
specification.
Fine.
And there's a request for a culvert, did I read that in here?
Yes, 18 inches by 30 feet.
So that's in the application?
It's
Permit?
the road commissioner's comment.
Oh, mine doesn't have that on it, but okay.
I think it was in,
So in the comments, it says a culvert 18 by 30, right, is required.
right.
Okay. Everybody good with the motion? Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for
Need this?
coming in.
I'll put it back.
Okay. I'm gonna put this here, I think. Get confused. Next topic. Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission's work plan. An application for assistance to conduct a scoping study of parking areas in both villages. So this is for $22,000 scoping study to look at parking alternatives with a 20% matching, which would be $4,400 that we would need to put into our budget. One of the reasons, among other parking issues we have, the fire station's looking more and more about opening the backside, taking those, where the shadow garage doors are, and opening that so fire trucks can go through. So that's gonna take away all that parking where the doors are, and they're gonna have to swing around. It's probably gonna take away 10 parking spots in our village. So there is a parking issue, as we all know. So the question is, do we want to support an application for a study of which we have a 20% contribution?
Where did 22,000 come from?
That came from an estimate from Du Bois and King. It's,
It's on the second page.
Yeah, it's here.
Okay.
And then it would go out to bid, or Du Bois, yeah.
well, regional planning has an agreement. They go out to bid at the beginning of the year and develop a relationship with, I think, 5 or so engineering firms. And so probably it would be one of those firms. Du Bois and King is usually one of those firms. So, but it could be one of the other firms as well.
So this is currently not in the budget that we're going to review tonight.
Correct.
Okay. Just to let you know, the budget is up, revenue over expenses in the order of 12% or so. So this is even more money, just so you have that in a frame of reference. And I think as we look at the budget, we're going to have to find ways to cut back a bit. So. So is there a motion for this, or absent of a motion, we don't proceed? What's people's request? I hear silence.
Yeah,
I don't hear a motion.
that's another expensive.
So we're going to pass on this. Everybody's good with that? Okay, moving on. Recreation revenue structure. Either Nicole or Greg, do you want to kind of get us started on your thoughts here? Which will probably relate, we'll get it started, and we have a lot to talk about on this topic, I think.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, why,
Because we left it that we were gonna check the bond, then we got
We
the
have-
bond information.
yeah,
And then I kinda didn't hear anything at all, so then I kinda sent an email out to the rec commission saying we should probably get like 3 quotes ready and like more of a direction, so if we meet on town meeting day, and people have questions that we're ready, because, you know, at first we went along with it, looking at, you know, a 10, 15-year plan so that we had time, and then, the excitement of possibly doing the bond, I knew we had to kind of get a head start and really get on this, so I kind of reached out to everyone, and then Bill said, well, you know, he spoke to you and Dean, and that, you know, there was kind of a holdup in trying to figure out what we wanted to do moving forward, and then I found out there was a meeting on Friday, on Friday I found out we were meeting today to discuss it, so I kind of am just, I'm happy to talk about it again, I just,
If I could also pick that up, there were kind of 2 structural issues. One, Bill was concerned at the last meeting about the recreation's ability to profit from the beach. So what did we learn about that? Did we talk to?
What we learned through Dean's intervention with, I think, the attorneys represent the town, is that it's entirely appropriate that we can legally create a fund from revenues generated from the beach, whatever you want to call it. Dean had a suggestion. I have another one, which is the beach activity revenue bar fund, only because it sounded right. But it's essentially the same thing. Whatever revenue would be generated would go into a fund. Our principal concerns are, 1, transparency, and 2, that the select board have it in their budget. We don't think it's appropriate for it to be a separate rec budget. I don't know if that's clear or not.
If this is allowed, which it is, I guess we vote on it, can't that just be revenue
I think so.
to your operations? You have new programs all the time?
It would go into the same line as beach permit fees and
Yes.
rec program fees.
So it's not a special fund per se, it's just revenue.
but that would probably be lost, right, after the year?
So,
Yeah.
let's just say for kicks that we want to take beach revenue and we wanted to put it into the recreation capital fund,
Right.
Okay,
So in the budget, we have in there, whatever it is, 10,500 something, whatever's right now, budgeted for town beach revenue. So, then on the back page where it has transfer into capital funds, we have that group. If we have 10,500 in the beach revenue, we have 10,500 in transfer to recreation fund. If we don't make 10,500 in the beach revenue, we don't transfer 10,500 into the recreation capital. But you have it on both sides so that you have your beach revenue coming in and you're going to transfer it out to the recreation capital fund.
Is that the same as operating funds?
No. The recreation capital fund is a separate fund. Like sitting in there right now is in the budget is, you had said that you wanted to put $4,500 in this coming year and the next year, total of $9,000 because you wanted to do the beach parking lot, you wanted to do the Lakefield Hoosie Dinger, bocce. You had like they have like 4 small things. So far, on that line, transfer to Recreation Capital Fund, which is a special fund for them, is $4,500. So what I'm saying is if your intent is to take the beach revenue that comes in and set it aside to the capital budget for them to build up to do the things they need to do, 4,500 is increased by 10,500, whatever. You have the same amount of beach revenue coming in as you're going to push over.
So do we need to do anything special other than maybe?
No.
No, during the budget cycle, it would be a discussion of what do you think the revenue will be this year?
Which would be
and-
tonight then, right? Or
Yeah, and what do we think we want to transfer in? Mary picked an equal number, but or recreation, or the select board could say, we only want to siphon off
Whatever
10,000
number.
a year from their revenue and let the rest go back into the budget, you know?
Yes.
So that'll be a
It's just
yearly
like, it's just like
decision.
saying, it's just like looking at their capital spreadsheet and they have different amounts set aside for however many years you want to try and budget for something. It's not complicated. You need to build up the recreation capital fund. How much money do you want to put in?
Right.
10,000, 20,000, 15?
And instead of it coming from the expense or asking taxpayers to do it, the
just comes out of the revenue side.
recreation's coming, right.
So is there any action we need to do on that topic? We need to estimate the revenue, I would assume,
Which
if we're going to,
Nicole and the commission has done that in their budget presentation.
have you already recommended an amount, assuming you're going to have vendors or other sources of revenue?
Well, at first, we were just trying to see if that was even a possibility. So at first, we didn't think that we could generate revenue,
More than,
more than what we have
Already is
already at
being
the
generated.
beach. So now that we can, then we can kind of take a look at it and see what types of venues we can bring in, how much we're gonna charge. That's a whole project of itself.
Weddings, the beach cross,
Right.
the lake cross.
I mean, is that
swims.
something you want to think about over the next week or so? I mean, we have to kind of put this together the next week to 2 weeks.
or do you want to wait a year?
I would wait a year. This is,
You know, and a year from now, if
yeah.
it's too low, we
Okay.
change the amount. It
Just to
doesn't
be
matter.
clear, I haven't talked with the town attorney about whether it's legal to be raising money in this manner from the beach. What the question was to the league of how to show it in terms of the budget, but the question of whether it's allowed has not been resolved.
Oh, I thought it had. I'm
It is
sorry.
allowable, but maybe you have to inform, the public in an article or something, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Mary?
So your decision for tonight is that it
Right.
doesn't, you don't, aside from this discussion, maybe next year they're going to make more money at the beach because they are going to be able to have vendors down there who are selling something and we get a piece of that, whatever piece that is. They can leave their revenue for the beach as it is. If we make more money at the beach, bonus.
Right.
All you need to decide is recreation has quite a few projects out there. We have underfunded the Recreation Capital Fund over and over and over. Plain and simple, how much do you want to put in the capital fund? That is one single line item. It is one expense. It doesn't have to be tied to how much money comes in from the beach or anything else. It's what is your decision about recreation going forward?
So the Recreation Reserve Fund right now proposed
It's 4,500.
45, 65 plus 4.5, 11,000, of which, oh, it's 4,500. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself a little. 4,500 agreed.
They have about 1,200 maybe in there right now.
And
Okay.
that doesn't take into consideration the bond.
Part two. So let's talk about that.
If you were gonna do a bond, you don't even have enough money in the capital fund to pay
Right.
the principal or the interest.
That's where I came up with this 11,000, which 6,500 would be a bond payment, but we're not quite there yet. We're not there yet. So, if you look at, staying on this topic, part two, if you look at the tentative articles, Article 11 is, as this first cut, is $265,000 for a bond for reconstruction of tennis courts and playground at the beach.
You are not there. You are not ready to put that.
We are not there, and we're not ready to do that yet. And we've talked to Bill. We'd like to be there, but it's not needed. I mean, you've spent money this year to fill the cracks, see how that works. You know, you're kind of creeping along a little bit. So it's not needed just yet from talking to one of your chairs.
We, I think the general agreement on that
Okay.
going for the full pot would be insane and isn't necessary. We can get by up, 3, probably 4 years with increased repair work each year. But at the end, we are going to need to do something substantial to that court to get it into workable shape going forward. So this is, so it's time. It gives us time. It gives us a window to get some money raised, but it's got to be.
I mean, rather than this Article 11,
Right.
me alone recommending, let's not do it. But perhaps we put some money in the Recreation Reserve Fund, 5,000, 6,000, something to kind of seed it to get it started. Is that something that makes sense?
Well, when we had the original presentation, the annual costs currently are $2,000 a year. So that's a hole in the bathtub. We can be funding 5,000, 6,000 to start building up to cover the cost of this, but really that 5,000 is 7,000. So, if we're looking at funding it in small amounts, half of it we're wasting into maintenance when a new court has a 25-year warranty. So over 25 years, $2,000 a year is $50,000 off that. It's not 265, it's 190. So, at some point, I think Bill was saying, he's not here, but at the last meeting I attended, the $2,000 a year crack fixes is one thing, but in 2 or 3 years, there's going to be an $8,000 repair that's going to need. So the question is, when do we want to stop wasting money on maintaining a dilapidated court, and when do we want to proactively get a 25-year warranty?
What's the bond payment on the 265? Is that
6,500, right?
The first year is around 10,000, and then after that, it jumps up.
You gave me 6,500 for the first year.
I'm sorry, you're correct. 6,500, and then 21,000, 20,000, and then it
Now,
goes down.
remember, 20,000 is for the playground also. So if we were just to do the tennis courts, it's probably somewhere in the 16 to 17,000.
take away the $7,000 or $8,000 repair. I mean, at $5,000 a year, you're gonna have enough money to replace the tennis courts by the time the price to do that is doubled anyway. That's,
I just think there needs to be more conversation with, group of people to get a solid plan. You're a planner. It seems like you're not, you could be ready, I'm sure, but at the same time, it seems like you'd want a little more
This is
time to
also,
get
this is
ducks in a
also
row.
a year out.
Yes,
So,
that's a good point.
we're not talking about shovel in the ground until, it could even be spring of 19.
And this is how many courts? It's just two
Three.
courts? 3 courts?
Tennis courts is a 3 or 2, 3?
Three
Yeah, we have
courts.
3 courts.
And I think the quote for 190 was for three courts, stressed concrete.
So do you have a suggestion on how to go on this then?
I guess my question is for the separate article, is that all bonds
Well, I think
require
it's
an
from-
article?
That's the 265, 190 for the tennis court, 190, or in 75 for the playground.
But all bonding requires an article.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could do it 2 separate bonds, a playground and the tennis court, and see what the town desires.
But there weren't there extra fees associated with double bonding?
It's about $5,000.
It seemed like the legal fees were around $5,000.
I think this is a good discussion for the town meeting. I mean, just lay it out there. Do you guys, you're gonna spend $5,000 to $8,000 a year fixing it, or you're gonna spend, another 10 and have new ones? I mean, you keep fixing it, it's when do you stop paying rent and you buy your house? I mean, everybody pulls the trigger at a different point in life, and
Right. It's a judgment call. I think by having the article here allows for that discussion to happen.
I just wanna make sure that, my concern is just making sure when town meeting day does occur that, cause I'm quite the planner, that I have an idea, okay, these are what the courts look like, we have our 3 quotes, and we have the exact, we've all agreed this is what the playground would look like, because when we met, we talked about quotes, and I said, this is the ballpark, and this is what we're looking at over a certain period of time. But now, I don't wanna get to town meeting and have all these questions come up and not be able to give the residents what they're looking for as well. So I do wanna make sure that we, as a, rec department, are prepared to move forward with the being able to answer all the questions.
I think that's a good thing to be prepared. I don't think you need to have everything done according to the purchasing policy, because it hasn't even been approved yet. But as far as a well-researched presentation, do you think you'd have enough time by town meeting to present something and answer questions about options?
I would hope so, yes.
So, Matt, Recreation Committee is saying they could go the way they're going. You just said 2, 3 years. I mean, once we kick off the bond, we can proceed the day that's approved. In other words, we can have a discussion at town meeting, but I don't think we need it as an article at this time, do you?
Well, I think what the article allows is, it allows the town to decide if they want to be spending an increasing amount of money on failing courts versus let's get a warranty and not have to worry about this and have great courts for 25 years. If we don't have the article, we don't give them that option.
I'm worried about the optics of our budget's growing. We're gonna talk about generators.
Well, I think
We're gonna talk about tennis courts. The optics.
The optics is pulling it out of the budget. See, I see the responsible thing from a fiscally responsible position as managing the town budget, that this is what we think needs to be in the budget, and these are things that we think we should bring to your attention for the town to decide. Like last year, it was the Trails Committee.
But-
We didn't want to put that in our budget because we were uncomfortable with that. It was too much money, but then the town said they wanted that. And then 2 years earlier, it was $30,000 for traffic enforcement. By not putting it on an article up for discussion, we're not allowing the town the option to express their values.
I think we can do it in other ways than, I mean, the recreation department or commission can't stand up there and say, my tennis courts are failing unless I get this bond. I mean, they can't say
So
that.
they can say $2,000 a year goes in to maintenance right now.
Right.
$8,000 in 2 years. Does the town want to do a new tennis court next year or not? Do they want to do it in 3 years? But having the article allows for the town to say
Yeah, but
yes.
shouldn't we be the filter, though? Can't we be a filter for the town?
Well, that's what I think the filter is. I mean, the filter is, we're not putting it in the budget. We could embed this in the budget and just have the bond vote and not have the discussion. But we're saying, does the town want to do this?
Back to the optics, you know, fire and rescue's up 9.2%, you know, plus the other things I mentioned. Do we want generators or not? 50,000. Do we want, I think we should be a filter to sounding board of reasonableness. And I just don't see the demand there. This year, you're right, $2,000 next year to put more filler in the courts. I got that. That's a little better than, a little easier to swallow than a bond of that magnitude. For quote, when you say purposes of discussion, we're getting a yes or no on that because it's a warned article.
So why don't we have it as an advisory and talk about it? I mean, I think it'd be a great
I guess
thing to talk about for the
I guess
following
I'm wondering
year.
the flip side. If the town wanted to do this, what reservation do you have with that? Why wouldn't you want the town to
I
say
don't want my
yes?
taxes to go up. As a
So,
voter, as a taxpayer, I don't want my taxes to go up that much.
right, but that would be what people would say at town meeting. So the filter isn't the censorship.
But I'm feeling we're not doing our job by helping you know, you're gonna get people in there for 1 hour, 30 minutes to talk about this. I mean, we sort of have a responsibility to steer what we think's important, in my mind.
I think we agree on that. The reason that I think it came to this point is because we're saving the town money by doing this in the long run.
Yeah, but we've only had one meeting, one discussion about that, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's a lot
Mary's had her
to
hand
put
up
up.
for a while. Yes, Mary.
So yeah, we had one meeting where the select board asked the Recreation Commission to, you know, come up with a spreadsheet. They come up with a spreadsheet, and they sit down, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, it's like, yeah, let's bond for the tennis courts, let's bond for the playground. And the Recreation Commission is sitting there going, who are these people? They have no idea that they would come in with the spreadsheet, and you'd be like, oh yeah, let's do that. If you're going to present a bond for $265,000 to be voted on at town meeting, they have to be really prepared. They have to have real numbers. The real numbers might not be $190,000 and $75,000. That $75,000 for the playground is an old number. You need pictures and plans to tell people this is what the beach is going to look like because this is what we're going to do, and this is the amount of money that we need to do it. It doesn't feel like a group readiness here. You can't just throw out a bond vote for $265,000 and say, yeah, that's what we're going to do. It doesn't feel right. It could feel right in November, or it could feel right, you know, maybe I should not be speaking for them, but it feels like they need some kind of time to plan. Right now, you're putting it's all going to fall right here at this person sitting in this chair right here. And there's a very short window of time between now and town meeting day. You know, this information should have already been out in the papers and every place else that says, we need this for the tennis courts and we need this for the playground. People, would have no idea walking into town meeting that they would even be voting on such a thing.
Yes.
I'm wondering if, to provide what Matt's looking for in terms of getting the town to weigh in, putting in a chunk in the reserve fund, if you're saying the tennis courts are 190,000, 200,000, put in 50,000 over a period of 4 years, you're there, and that provides the opportunity for the town to say, yes, we support this, we want to get there in 4 years, or no.
You're recommending changing, that's what I did actually, change the article from 265 to 50.
Well,
Is that
no,
what you're
I was
saying?
just putting it in the budget, in the
No article.
No article at all?
Right.
But would you add that kind of money to the budget?
Well, I mean, you could have a separate article like you did last year with the Trails
Kind
Reserve.
of thinking we don't have enough audio visual for this. I mean, you would like to have someplace published a
Site plan.
site plan, says, this, says this,
Excited about it.
and
Well,
put it
yeah.
out there in a paper and stuff and let it,
It's really a good thing.
I mean,
It's
you could
just-
come
it's
up with
too quick.
something like that in time for the meeting, but you wouldn't have any input other than
Just-
one thing. So that may be the first shot, maybe this is a year early.
Could be.
And can't we talk about it at town meeting? That just even some kind of advisory motion or just somehow
Maybe
get
just
everybody
wait till somebody's
talking
got
about
something to
it?
point to, look at this is what we want to do.
Oh, I see. You'd rather,
Have a plan, have the grand, whatever. Because we were talking about adding parking and other stuff down there. Maybe
Yeah.
we should just do a comprehensive site plan.
The baseball field.
Changing the baseball field, adding parking, replacing tennis courts, new playground. A number of things all shown on a plan so that people can look at it and say, oh, that's cool, or we don't want to spend money on that, and
Right, I mean.
revise it accordingly.
That's the visuals, which are more easily gotten in the spring and summer than they are now.
Yes.
It would be a grim
So what do you think we should add to the budget for recreation to be able to create a site plan?
Why don't you put a separate article like you did trails, because then people are going to see it in the budget.
What order? You have to usually put money on.
They're going to see your budget at a certain number that's, they're going to see the bottom line, what your budget is, but they're not going to see that we've put 50,000 or whatever into the recreation line. If you put it in, like we did the trails, you're going to get a very good idea how people feel about that, A, and they can put more, or they can adjust that. They can put more or less. They could vote to put 100 in, or 20, or whatever, but people will see it as a separate article,
So you're
and we'll
talking about
discuss it.
Putting in a certain amount, have an article to put in a certain amount for a study, basically, and a report on,
No, all you have to
what
do
they're
is say,
doing?
shall the town, transfer or raise $50,000 in tax dollars be set aside in the recreation capital fund? You can word it however you want to. You don't have to be.
Future investment, future playground. Yeah, that's where I was at earlier, yeah. What do you think of that, folks? Huh?
I think that's a better idea.
So, just if you change the 265 to 50, we're not bonding.
right,
This would be a hand vote.
yeah,
I'd go, I don't know, 50's an awful lot for
I
to
think
study
so,
it.
too.
Or, are we really, I thought we were seeding the recreation reserve fund.
I figured it was,
Well, it'd be I think it'd be both, although
that's what I was thinking.
the site plan might cost a couple $1,000s.
As
Could
long as
that
it
come,
doesn't look like we're gonna do like we did with the Town Link Trail and spend $40,000 to say this is a gravel path from here to there.
I mean,
It would be worded where some of which to pay for a
Site plan.
site
and-
plan.
or we could just add $2,000 to their
$2,000
budget
To the budget, that's what I
for
was
the
just
site
thinking.
plan,
Yeah, that's-
and have $40,000 to seed the capital fund.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
You guys all right with that? Mm-hmm. What's the magic number? Is it 40?
Hard to tell until you get your plan done.
Well,
What do people want to do?
But we're gonna have to make a decision on an article, next week or
Oh,
two.
yeah, no, for the article, yeah, I mean, 40's fine,
40? Okay.
as long as it comes with an explanation of what it's for.
So it'll be part of the Articles 1 through 8, town hand vote, 40,000.
For improvements to the town beach, including tennis courts, playground, and future,
To add to the,
what?
Baseball, oh, no, that's in this year's.
but to be added to the recreation reserve fund.
Reserve fund, yep.
Doesn't mean we're gonna spend it now.
Capital reserve.
Yeah. Okay?
And then we agreeing, adding $2,000 to their operating budget?
For site
For
planning.
site plan.
Yep. Okay.
So if the 40,000 goes in the capital fund, then we're waiting to see how the site, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand what's going on.
Until it's needed, and
Then-
maybe next year,
Right.
there'd be more seed money put in.
Or bond.
Or a bond, right.
But at least you've got people thinking about it.
Right.
And there would still be some oral presentation at the time.
And it gives you a reason to
Probably the
stand
next
up.
town meeting.
And maybe you decide you want to use that for the playground first. I mean, I don't know. But you can think about it. Like, we're going to have fire and rescue make a pitch. Maybe you guys, I think that way you get the town involved.
And you have the year to be getting feedback through rec programming, what people want to see at the beach. Commission has a little more time.
We were, one of the things we've been thinking about is doing a survey in the spring when people are ambulatory, once again, about what their preferences are for projects and activities. So that would fit in nicely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're continuing on the budget discussion. So if you look, just want to give you a feel of where we're at. I think Dean's got it on the board. If you look at where we're at, what we have done so far, you have revenue. Did you have revenues separate, Dean, or is it all together? Here it is, good, I got it. So if you look up on the board, expenses minus revenues, and it's in the handout. Why is my number different than yours, Dean? Expenses minus revenue? Oh,
1880? or
Nine-
what- 1 million?
208, I got it now. So if you look at expenses minus revenues, last year approved was 1,672,291. Put your arrow on it. And there, right there. And then this year, we're looking at 1,880,310. So that's an increase of 208,000. So over 1.6 million last year, and we're going to increase from the things we've looked at so far, 208, 10% is 160,000. We're like in the 12, 13% increase to the taxpayers.
And now we're just
Is that fair to say it that way?
an additional 40,000 in
Well,
recreation reserve.
wait, dollars to raise with articles?
Well, we haven't even gotten to that yet. This is before you get to the articles.
Got it.
So it's the one that's on the top of your page, 208019. So right today, with everything we have in here, we're raising our expenses minus revenues, 208,000, 13%. So, too much. So I had a couple of things just to get the discussion started. So we just talked about, well, maybe we also, we have a couple of things to talk about. We have articles. So So right now, we have one article, which is the 50,000. You go down a couple lines where Dean has it highlighted. That's for the generators, right?
Right.
And then we just said a minute ago, we're going to add another 40,000 for Recreation Reserve Fund. So that makes the increase 218 plus another 40, 258. So now we're up 258. I mean, we're getting in the pretty high number here. So,
Where's the fire and rescue? 200,000.
that is in their budget. So we have in our budget, I believe the number is 120,000. That goes into their fund. So that's already in our budget. It's their, they have a growth of this 9.2%.
Our appropriation this year to their fund is 120.
120,000 is in there already, so that doesn't show up separately.
Right. That's in the 258.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I can pick off a couple of big ones. If, for example, we have 80,000 in the conservation fund that's in our budget. Isn't the conservation fund around $500,000, the balance?
Yes, it is. Look at those nice little notes. Current balance in the conservation fund, 503.20.
Tell me what page you're on so I can be there quickly. Page 14.
Total projects projected for fiscal year 18-19, the total projects they have out there is $280,000. So if they finish all of them in a year, which never happens, they would spend $280,000, and we have sitting in the fund right now $503,020.
Where do I see,
Recommendation for FY 18-19 is 0.
where do I see their balance on your sheet? I'm on page 14.
Of this, are you looking at this?
I'm looking at what you hand out,
Yeah,
which is the
it's-
comparative,
it's-
oh, this is the general.
There's a memo right under line 100-9956.
Let me just make sure I'm on the right full document. Are you looking at this one?
Yep. Yep, page, the last page.
Okay, and it's where? Thank you. Yeah, 503. Okay. So, to your point, does the board want to keep 80,000 in as a, to increase that fund at this time?
I don't see why we should. Is there a reason why?
I believe we zeroed it last year.
We did. The reason Kate gave during her presentation, if I remember correctly, Kate Lampton, is if there's not enough, then sometimes people who have large projects won't be encouraged to think about conserving them, or they won't be able to when the time comes. If what Mary's saying
They typically
is
finish
true,
one
they're gonna
project a
have,
year.
right, they're
The
gonna
most they've ever
have
done is like 2.
$200,000 available, which is not nearly enough for one big project, but Kate also didn't see any big ones on the horizon.
Oh, big ones take more than a year or two.
Right.
Right.
I mean, Nichols was a big one that took, what, 6 years, 7 years?
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't see any harm in significantly reducing it.
So let's take that to zero, that 80,000 to zero? People on board with that?
Yeah.
Okay, the next one I have is the roof. Can you help me find that?
It's on the same page.
What-
Improvement repairs and the. Transfer to other funds.
It's on the same page as you were just at.
Is that
Okay.
At the
second to
bottom.
last one?
Okay.
The last one's transfer to trails.
Oh, the 20, so, okay, that's 25,000, which is half of a roof. We're gonna do that over 2 years.
Correct.
Well, I guess that's okay then. We had it mixed with generator earlier on. So that's, right now, that 25,000 is standalone the roof, half of the roof, right?
That's right.
So I think that's okay.
That's, that's you're just rolling the dice.
You're
It
all-
might last another 5 years.
Yeah.
Maybe you go plan on doing it,
Over 3 years.
replacing it in 3 years, it's kind of like the other one. You got, when do you stop fixing your old car and buy a new one? Roof, however, I mean, those have to be. So
So you're comfortable taking it to 15?
I would be comfortable reducing it, just putting it in there as a placeholder, as a reminder that, my intent of mentioning this was not to say we need a new roof in 2 years. It's like, the shingles are getting crispy. It might last, it's weather dependent, it's storm dependent, it's to not have 100% surprise that, oh man, we need a new roof now. If the thought is out there, there's money going into it,
How old's the current roof right now?
it's
Would you say 20?
original. So it's, when was this built to,
1994, so it's 24 years old, the roof that's on there.
How bad was it when you were up there in the middle of winter?
well, there's 4 or 5 places over there where shingles blew off. I mean, there's places where I went to the last time I was on the roof, I couldn't nail the shingle because they would just break. So that's a good indication that they're,
Brittle.
Right.
well, let's just leave it at 25, and then
Okay.
if we come to the end and we're still painful, we can, that's not a cast in stone number.
Okay. Mary?
So what about the 120,000 for fire and rescue? Why is that a given? Is that
We
a
haven't
given?
gotten to it yet. I think somebody was asking, where is it? It's in the budget right now. So what page is that on?
Just about.
Just about.
There it is, same page. So, if we look at their spreadsheet,
Somewhere there was a different spreadsheet for the same FY19, and it had the new air packs and bottles at 100,000.
In addition to the 120.
so I'm looking at option C that was presented to us when you folks were here 3 weeks ago. So, we have 120 there as an allocation to the capital reserve fund. And we're hearing that the air packs with bottles is, air packs is 200, with bottles is 220. So with that in, leaving the 120 in, it makes the total in the positive. It leaves a balance of 99,000 at the end of the year. It would be what? Oh, because we added the 20. Okay. So that leaves 79 at the end of the year, which I think,
The 20 was a number that came from a 2014 or 2015 approval to buy out of the capital fund replacement bottles that never got purchased. In hopes, the whole air pack thing is it was in there at 100,000 for 2 years in a row. And then there got to be the question, changing the wisdom of not knowing which particular one you have, because they operate differently. From a safety standpoint, they should all be wearing the same thing with interchangeable parts. So instead of doing it over 2 years at 100,000 per year, the decision was made to accelerate that to do it all in 1 year. That's how it got to 200. And then the 20 was that the bottles that weren't purchased for the old ones, since you're gonna get new ones anyway, you would use those towards the new air packs.
Can I speak to the air tax?
Sure, take the microphone, it helps with the VCAM.
So the situation with the air packs is that they're old. Half of them are from 1995, the other half are from 2005. I should say the second half was actually purchased in 2007, but they were 2-year-old air packs when they were purchased. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is that we've applied for grants 3 years in a row and been denied. So there's been an effort to, to try to corral these things at little or no cost, and we've been thwarted. So, I think it's to the point where they're not safe, and we've got to have them.
Christina, you want to?
So my quick question is then, so on the capital reserve fund that is shown on the budget.
Yep.
And it says 120,000.
Yep.
So this air pack thing is in addition to that?
No. It gets absorbed,
Into their capital, and they're gonna use a good chunk of their capital reserve.
right. So with the 220 and the other things they do during the year,
Well, that was gonna be my next question. So what other funds are put into the capital reserve that have built that capital reserve up other than town appropriations?
there are none.
Okay, so town appropriations is the only thing in that capital reserve
Right.
that pays for all of the equipment then?
Yeah, it pays for, we have bonds, several bonds here. Yeah, several bonds.
So if you drop that capital reserve to 79,000, can you still make your however many bonds we have over there for payments?
Right, you'd be at zero balance at the end of the year, which then means you have to raise that much more next year for the ongoing bonds, equipment that they need.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can somebody go back? I think, Dean, you were telling me about the history of the town's decision to infuse money into the capital reserve. When did that originate again?
I think it was in the early 2000s that the Capital Reserve Fund was created to even out the expenditures for fire and rescue, capital investments. I think the interest rates were higher then, so the tendency was to not, or to do a
Lower.
combination of bond and yep.
And what, the town approved a percentage of the grand list, did they not?
Originally, yes.
And that amount was, I'm trying to remember, it was like 2.5 cents. So in essence, 2.5% of the grand list. And so 2.5% of the grand list today would be how much?
Probably around 210,000, 200.
So we've been, I think, consistently under that, and we've been projecting it 120 grand, which is what, about 60% of what the town approved technically. But I mean, the 120 number seems like a good number. Maybe we could look at carving that down for this year, possibly.
But then it just makes the burden next year even greater.
It doesn't help long-term for sure, but I have a question also on the balance that's covered in there. Is there any interest being earned on that balance? Are those funds in an interest-bearing account?
Yeah, it's in our general fund.
And what is that interest rate?
Tiny, very tiny.
Like what's tiny?
I don't know, it varies. It's in a standard checking account, so your interest rate.
0.001% kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'm just curious if interest is reflected at all on any of the carried balance, since it probably doesn't rarely get down to zero, does it, or?
I guess my next question was gonna be, is we saw a list of their vehicles that they own over there in the last couple of bonds that been to replace certain trucks. When those trucks are sold, can that money go into that to take care of some of that stuff?
Well, we have a line in there.
Because those trucks are still on their list of inventory, and they were supposed to be sold as replacements for some of these bonded trucks, so.
They do like 10, when the when the pumper comes in, they have a line that they would expect to sell engine 2, just a good guess, $10,000. So that's,
1980 pumper?
I believe that's what it
Yeah,
is.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
according to the minutes, that was the one that was being replaced with the previous bonded pumper also. So the last two bonded trucks over at Fire and Rescue, according to select board minutes, was replacing the 1980 fire truck, pumper truck. But that 1980 pumper truck is still going strong. So
Well,
I was
hasn't
curious.
come in, the new one isn't here yet.
Right, but the previous bond was also to replace that same truck. In the minutes,
I don't-
February,
I don't follow
whatever,
that.
I can pull the
Well,
minutes.
but we have
I'm
approved
just
one.
wondering when that truck's gonna get sold, or if it's gonna be part of the
When,
next bond.
when the new pumper comes in, then they have a replacement, and then engine number 2 will be sold.
Right, any tax paid vehicles when sold, the money is returned to the town in effect. It's interesting, we just had, one of the members of the force just bought an enormous engine, used engine from Waterbury. Giant thing, he had it parked out back, it's like a novelty to him. You know what he paid for it? $4,500. I mean, this thing had a ladder that went up 100 feet. So there's just not a lot of residual value to them, unfortunately.
But it is accounted for. Yes, Mary?
So,
Microphone if we could. Tom? Yeah.
why? When you have equipment costs like these, 200,000, 220,000, and you're putting them in the capital fund and you're expecting the town to pick up that cost, why is there no revenue coming in from fire and rescue special funds? Last year, you bought a boat for however much that was, I don't know, 120, whatever it was, doesn't matter. So the town does not vote on that. We're not asked if we think we need that or not, or that we want to spend funds on that or not. So that was purchased with special funds. The need for the air pack seems to be quite high. Maybe we would have rather that you purchased air packs with Barrels funds than a boat. So why is it that there is never any special funds that go into this capital reserve fund? And if you're not going to put special funds into the capital reserve fund, then why is our capital reserve fund not just for equipment? I mean, the spreadsheet with the costs that are on here are just, it's just too high to keep coming to the town and saying, you know, we're desperate for this and we're desperate for that, and oh, by the way, we're going to give you $10,000 for an old truck that we sold. I'm sorry, but it doesn't, it's not sustainable to keep, your operating budget is up 9 point whatever %, and the capital reserve fund, we have this big ticket item of $220,000 in here with no contribution from any of your special funds. I just don't understand why that can't ever be possible.
For the same reason the library, Friends of the Library how much do they contribute to the operating cost of the library?
I have no idea what they do.
0. Friends of the Senior Center, they decided to build an addition to the senior center. People donated money for that thing, and the town didn't approve that. Are the Friends of the Senior Center supposed to donate funds to the operating cost of the senior center?
The Friends of the Senior Center raised all the money for the addition that they wanted over there in the entryway.
No, but you say it should be contributed to the operating cost. They don't.
I'm saying something should be contributed, something should be happening so that this cost that is ever increasing year after year after year, it's getting too high. Is our town exploding in size and population and amenities and all this thing? We're the same old that we always have been, and the cost to run fire and rescue services is enormous. It's enormous. And every time they come in and they say, we need this, and we need this, and we need this, and we just say, nothing. And here, you know, the town hall, we need a roof on the town hall, and we're wondering if, you know, maybe we should just put $15,000 in our reserve fund. Maybe we don't need to do it today. Maybe we can, you know, last another year or two. And we're always putting off. We're putting off other things in town, and we won't ever consider that we never consider fire and rescue saying, no, you can't have that much this year. We need a new tennis court.
Well,
We need generators.
what would you like to cut?
I'd like to cut $120,000.
When people were here with a very long explanation, item to item of what costs were, you didn't want to pay any attention to that at all. You said, this doesn't make any difference. We don't need to know what the details are. Just cut some off the top. But then on the other hand, when we went through your budget, you took an hour and 20 minutes to go through item by item to explain to everybody why it was needed. Why is it important to listen to what was in your budget, but not important to listen to why the fire department had budget?
First of all, I did my budget and your budget. And I explained it all to you so that you would understand where the money is going.
The explanation is good.
When I
Why
say-
wasn't the explanation
when I
for the fire
say-
department accepted?
When I say that there is no detail, what I am saying is, unlike the town budget, you cannot see, let's say, fire and rescue office equipment, and it says $5,000. There's nowhere for us ever to see what makes up $5,000. There isn't. So that line item could be 3,000, or it could be 2, or it could be 10, but there's never any detailed information that goes with that. That is not, we are not allowed to see that. If you look at your own budget and you pull up a line that says office equipment, I can hit a button, print your report, and it'll tell you everything that's on there. So you can decide, you know what, we've been spending things that we should have been spending, and they aren't really office equipment. That is what I'm trying to say when you look at fire and rescue presents their budget and they say they need 600 whatever thousand. It doesn't really mean anything to, you can't really see that. You can't break it down and see it. I don't know if they really need 600,000, or if they really need 400,000, or if they'd be better off with 800,000. There's no detail in the report. So, and the way we pay them is we pay them a monthly appropriation. We are giving a donation to fire and rescue. So you can decide whatever you want, you can decide whatever that number is. It doesn't really matter, it's not the right word, what the budget is. It doesn't matter until you can see, if you look at fire training, what is that? Is that somebody coming in and teaching a class? Is it that somebody traveling to a class? Is it 10 people who are able to go to a training? Is it one person who used all the training money? What is it? The detail is not there for anyone to see.
I should have been taking notes. Try to respond. It's a very long list. I'm not sure that I can get all of it down, but can I respond? Is that okay? Sure. So, first off, once again, the purpose of the barrows and the special funds, tower and whatnot, is to provide things beyond the basics of fire and rescue. And that's how we viewed it, and we've tried to be prudent and fiscally responsible with the way we spend money out of the Barrows Fund. You know, if you look, you mentioned the boat. So let's talk about the boat. A couple of summers ago when there was a thunderstorm and there were countless number of charlotteS and Shelburne folks that were capsized out on the lake. Our boat wasn't in a position to be able, the current boat at the time was not in a position to be able to go out and be of any help. Shelburne's boat went out and just barely, I think they capsized, if I remember correctly. We were able to find a boat, a high-quality boat that can be out there no matter what the conditions are. And I guarantee you that over the next few years, there'll be incidences with boaters that will be very glad that we have that capability. The Barrows Fund is a private trust. I've read the document many times. It's pretty clear. And what it says is that the money is left to CVFRS and to its discretion as to how it is used. It does not stipulate that the town should have any jurisdiction over it in any way, shape, or form. You mentioned that, you know, Charlotte, you as a town and this group and whatnot don't get to vote on the things that are purchased with the Barrows monies. How would that work exactly? I really wonder. You know, people in the town are not necessarily in a position to understand the operating needs of the organization. How would they be able to vote in a timely fashion when our washing machine that washes the fire uniforms, that's a federal requirement to get the carcinogens out of the fabric, how would you be able to vote to replace, you know, an item of that nature, which is over the $5,000 limit that we use Barrows to spend on or to buy with? We use Barrows to replace mattresses where the people sleep that are 20 years old. Is that a frivolous use of the dollars? I don't think so. We have anticipated expenditures out of Barrows like the rear doors on the station. Because with a new cab over truck that's coming, engine that's coming, we're going to have to be able to put engine 4 in the back. And engine 4 is the most economical way to go out and deal, for example, with a smoke alarm that goes off. It's the most efficient, fuel-efficient way to get out there. So, in my view, the Barrows money is being used prudently. Again, if you look at the document itself, it is totally a private document. By the way, that trust, if you read it carefully, stipulates leaving money to the library as well as the senior center. And it's, you know, it's very clear. So it isn't just allocated to the CVFRS.
Anything else? Yes, Christina.
As a taxpayer, not even as my position here in town, 9% on the appropriation budget, what portion of your operating budget is donations and do you receive outside of town? Excluding Barrows, but what portion of fundraising and other funds come in that help alleviate some of the tax burden?
Could you give us a minute to kind of take a look at some numbers? We do receive some gifts from time to time.
Spreadsheet. I mean, the audited amount last year was $900.
Right.
So out of a $600,000+ budget, $900 came from somewhere other than the taxpayers' backs. Now, I can honestly tell you, looking at the education tax rate, that's going up this year too. So we had a great decrease in our taxes, but we're up of 12%. Education tax rate's gonna go up. I understand there's a lot of needs out there. I understand there's some touchy subjects out there. We got a roof that's 24 years old and we're wondering where we're gonna get funds for that. We have a child care place at the beach that has been deemed hazardous by our VLCT. The fact is that there's a lot of people that want money, but as a taxpayer, I do not want my tax bill going up 12% or 13% to cover things. I mean, we're talking in a range here, education tax is gonna go up and the town budget's up. It's left to you guys, nobody else. Nobody else can sit out here and say, but this is why we need it. It doesn't matter. You guys have the red pen, and if you say no, you say no. But as a taxpayer, you guys have been voted in to take care of that. And we had a great break in our taxes last year, and I do not foresee that this year. And as a matter of fact, we're on our way to it being even bigger than the year before. So it's up to you guys, no matter how touchy the subject it is, to find ways to cut.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
I wasn't actually, I just was speaking to them.
I understand,
wasn't
I understand, but it's following on our comments, and it's in our section, if you will. So, I mean, I pay taxes in Charlotte as well, and nobody wants taxes to be level or go down more than I do, I can assure you of that. And I will also tell you, as a volunteer, as the new volunteer president, we are looking at, we've, I think, taken a very hard look at the budget. No other part, to my knowledge, no other part of Charlotte, the town, has made the decision to change their health care. Did any other entity change their health care provider to save money? I don't think so. We did, because we were serious about trying to take whatever steps we could do to save money. We also are looking at ways to save additional money, but we're also looking at ways to raise revenues. We've got some ideas on it. We're going to pursue those aggressively. So, and to me, that's probably one of the best things that we can do towards lowering operating expenses is earn more money.
They do awesome at fundraising. Town of Essex Fire Department does awesome at fundraising. They ask very little from their town, actually.
Well, we've taken the approach that training and education and safety are more important than standing out in the street with a cup. So that's been our approach so far.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Patrice.
I did just want to bring to your attention that although the donations line item is small, if you look at program services income, which is monies that we receive for hazmat billings and some training courses and things of that nature. Last year, that was in the $13,000 range. So don't lose sight of that as additional revenue that we bring to the table as well.
Okay. Any other discussion on fire and rescue? Any comments from the select board? Okay. Just the big picture of the budget overall. We believe the, what do we call the index for cost of living? CPI, we believe that's 1.9%, right?
We put it in at 1.9%. It was, I think it was 1.94 as of including November, so we haven't gotten December's figures yet.
So that's included, it comes out about the 10th of January
15th,
for the year, so.
Yeah, 15th.
So that's included.
Yep.
Okay. What's the pleasure, so those are the bigger discussions. Oh, the generator is another discussion I guess I'd be willing to have. So right now, we have an article for $50,000 for 2 generators, one for the town hall and one for fire and rescue.
One for the senior center.
Senior center and,
The senior center becomes the,
And town
instead
hall.
of the school, becomes the public shelter in an emergency.
what are people's opinions on that? And the select board. So it's Article 5, raise 50,000 for taxes for the generators, propane generators, senior center, town hall, in support of our emergency planning. And that is on the, what Dean had up earlier in the summary, additional articles. There's that 50,000 there. last year we had an additional article of 40,000, which were trails. This year we have additional article being the generator. Is that something we want to keep?
Plus the rec.
Huh?
Plus the rec.
Recreation.
40,000 for recs, and that's not.
Right, plus the 40,000 for rec, right. Sorry, yep, got that. What are people's thoughts on that? Is that good to keep or defer it?
Take 50 from Fire Rescue Capital Fund. Keep 50 for us, for heaven's sakes. That's what I mean. Why are we doing that? Why are you taking the generators away? And you're not even thinking that 120 could be 70. I don't understand.
Were the generators needed for that plan that we signed?
Well, that's really my question. Who's our expert in long-range?
With FEMA, are those generators needed to make us compliant with them? That emergency plan that we had to file,
You're supposed to provide an emergency shelter.
Which means they need to have generators to operate the wastewater. So technically, we need to be in compliance with FEMA, so we do need to eventually come up with this money for the generators.
From what I understand, years ago, it was in the plan that the school was going to be the emergency shelter. And they looked at providing emergency power to the school, and it was significantly more expensive, $200,000+ for such a large building. 2 years ago, when we met with our emergency, I forget his title, Chris Davis is the emergency director with the county, we changed the goal to be that the shelter would be the senior center because it's smaller, it still has the same benefits of having food service and what have you. It's adjacent to emergency medical care. Easier to put a generator on, much cheaper. But the toilets for the town are run by a circuit in the town hall. So 2 options, one to try to get power from your shelter under the street, underground, all the way over to here, is most likely more expensive than just putting a generator here. Is it mandatory to comply with it? Not that I know of. I think it's a plan that you are supposed to work towards year after year. So,
Because I was gonna say, that was the big deal about signing it, was so that we'd be in compliance in case any natural disaster happened, and FEMA would offer assistance and help with.
it was a plan to do this. It didn't say that if you don't have these things by this year, you're not covered. So I don't think it's required to stick with the FEMA rules, but it is in the plan to move forward, and if.
So it sounds like there's a desire by the board to keep that article in there?
Yeah.
No, okay. Anything else? Those are the big things I found. Are there other items that you want to review? Mary, are there items?
You guys aren't finished with the computer stuff.
Right.
So
So they're coming in next Tuesday, right?
Yes, 16th.
So our next meeting is Tuesday to talk about the computer stuff.
So your first question would be whether you're going to upgrade the server. If you're going to upgrade the server, are you going to do it this fiscal year, or are you going to do it next fiscal year?
Right. And then there's the recurring costs. If we do the cloud, huh?
Versus the in-house, yeah.
Right. So that is a discussion we're going to do next week. Yes, Tom?
I was just going to reiterate again, why don't you consider at least taking our 120 down to 80? I think that still puts us in, looking at the numbers roughly puts us in kind of even stead for 3 years. At least think about it.
Yeah.
I saw you shaking your head, Patrice.
I think,
Nice.
if I look at your spreadsheet, you have an ambulance to replace a 2006 ambulance next year. I mean, when you make that offer, I think that's a good offer. At the same time, I think we ought to consider delaying the ambulance too.
And that ambulance would be bonded just like the fire truck too.
Right, but even so, you're still gonna have to pay these annual bondings are, you know, 20,000, 20,000, 31,000. This pumper is 31,000. But I mean, that's a good offer. So you're suggesting taking the 120 down to 80? Okay. So board support that?
Yeah, that brings it down to 138.
Okay.
From what was 258.
258 down to,
Minus 80 from conservation is 178, minus 40 from fire and rescue is 138.
but we added in the 40.
That's in there.
Okay, so the number is now what, 38?
138.
So the increase is 138, which is about
Instead of
8
the,
or 9%.
I have
looking-
168,
instead of the 218.
I have-
Right.
Now I got 208 plus 10 is 218 plus 40 is 258 minus 80
Oh, you had 10,
is
where's
178.
the 10?
The 10 is the difference of the 50 and the 40 from last year.
Okay, I
there.
just said
That shouldn't be a 90.
40,000 recreation, 50,000,
Yeah, that's 90. Did you add the 2,000?
in there.
Plus the
No.
2,000 for recreation you needed to add too. Have you done that?
no.
I did that in the budget.
See,
So-
under recreation, Dean, you have the bond, that 11,000 there? No, that's not it. I have to find my note. But do you still have that bond
No.
number in recreation?
No, it's 4,500 here.
Yeah, you took that out?
Yeah.
So now we need to add 2,000 per agreement a few minutes ago, right?
I'll call it beach miscellaneous for now, but we'll add another line.
Do you need to keep that number at 40,000? If you're talking about coming up with a plan, which would be
Oh, the
potentially,
recreation?
bonded for all of that,
Sure. Could lower that.
could,
30.
Fine with me.
What was that?
The 40,000 for recreation, we can make it a 30. So that 90 becomes 80. So where did you put in the
What are we
2,000?
gonna do with that 30?
Oh, it's seed money, it's to do a site plan, and then it's seed money for the
To
recreation
be able
fund.
to pay the bond payments when they come in.
Right.
Yeah.
So the 2,000 that he just put in was for this,
In the operating budget for a site plan.
for the site plan. And
Okay,
then
so you've got that in there.
30,000 to put into the capital reserve
Let me
fund.
see your, so
Yeah.
what's the increase now then?
Yep.
I've got it at 170.
I don't think so.
So it's-
130.
That line is,
The original expenses minus revenues was 208.
But why wouldn't it be down on that bottom line, your 337 line,
down
Dean?
there, 210.
It could
It's
be
that
there.
line.
Right.
That
don't
was,
That includes the additional articles, yes, so that's, is that where you adding before or after the articles?
I'm adding everything.
Okay.
And I'm at 130 instead of what you originally had was 218 in that line.
That 218 didn't include the articles, right?
It
It
included
the
50.
50,000. So now you have 80, so that went up.
But it only went up 30, right?
It went up, yep, 30 for the bond, for the article rather, on recreation, minus 80 for conservation.
Did you take out the 40 for
Yeah, took out 40 for fire and rescue.
fire and rescue?
Let's check.
80 conservation.
The conservation store in there.
Yeah, was it? Oh, there it is.
There you go, that'll make a difference. Okay. Does that look more like your number?
Yep, 130.
Yep.
Matt, were you second guessing your math?
No, but double check
I was second guessing.
Yeah, I got a final number of 180, of 1,812,130 for the budget number here after everything.
Is yours different from Dean's? Dean is real time. This is all on a spreadsheet. You should, I mean, we're comfortable with what Dean has, the 130.
The change is 130, 1842310. Is that what you said?
I didn't get the change, I was doing
Oh, yeah.
the total for the budget.
So what's that do to the tax
Tax rate without.
increase? What's that?
It's penny,
That's
penny, one.
All right, I'm close.
1.33 cents.
Right.
Okay.
Plus, typically, budgets are evaluated, all the budgets we look at, by their percent increase of the budget. So the percent increase of 3,046,847 from last year, we're now at a 4.3% increase from last year.
Okay, which number you're looking at?
99
I'm looking at the
compared to.
expense.
Oh,
total.
137, oh, revenue,
The expense total of our budget, the town
Okay.
budget.
okay.
So how much did the budget increase from last year?
Oh, and it's 4.
4.3%.
Okay.
which
And that's
is-
the line, the expense total line at 99029, okay.
Be interesting to know how much of that is payroll and insurance.
Well, it's not 99, because it's including the articles that aren't in the 99. So it's the
Okay.
130,
Okay.
which is
Yep.
the change from last year's.
We know that I think the 2%, did we say that was $2,000 or is that more than that? 2% on the income? You're asking what makes up that growth. One of them is the cost of living.
Oh, man, we had 10%, just, to fire and rescue's point, the health insurance.
Right.
I mean, we had a couple of lines that went up
On there.
significantly, 11%.
I was
senior
talking
center.
about the town employees.
Yeah, the town employees, it was a 20,000 increase on.
Oh, for that.
For the benefits.
That okay,
Well, I mean, they're all town employees.
that's true, yeah.
But
It's the cost, I mean, to explain to people, you have to explain to them, it's the cost of labor and insurance.
Yeah.
It's a big chunk of that increase. It's
Yeah,
not that.
town healthcare went up 13.8%. The budget's going up 4%. So it definitely made a lot of cuts here to absorb the cost increases.
That was good help, thank you.
The only other thing
Yep.
we might want to look at, if people, depending how sharp we want to get pencils, town lands is up 17.6%.
Tell me where to find that.
Page 3 of the spreadsheet, a third of the way from the top.
Page 3, town lands, yeah?
And the biggest contributor is cemetery maintenance, which over the last 2 years, the discussions have really been centered around putting more money into the cemeteries. We have a lot of momentum with a new commission. The fences are not looking good. And if that's, something people value, then, it's a small number, it's just a big percent. But it's going up 6,700.
They really have
Sure.
talked to us quite a bit on
Yeah.
rejuvenating what hasn't been taken care of over several years. I'd kind of leave it myself.
I have it that should be cut down some. It shouldn't go from $10,000 a year to 15 and then 21. What's next year look like? And the year after that. I really appreciate what they're doing, but these cemeteries aren't going anywhere. And
So what's your recommended
A
number?
big chunk of that is the fence.
Yeah, They're gonna repair like 2 sides of the fence, I think?
Right, on Greenbush Road.
Yeah,
And
the
there's-
Green Bush
Yeah, I
Road.
think they were trying to. I think
No
they
matter
were
what
trying
you
to put
do-
some in to be able to do the fence all at once, I think.
The fence along the Greenbush Road is still gonna be
snow plow,
snow plowed and
weathered.
Yeah.
So what's the board think?
I'd leave it at 15 myself.
Mary, you got a comment?
Well, when they came in and they estimated of the 21.7, how much was mowing and weed whacking and fence replacement, actually what they were actually paying for mowing was much less than what they were, the guy that's doing the mowing at the cemetery now is a lot less than what it was before. So instead of 4,000, he was 2,800 or so. And the fence replacement, when they were talking about that, although I don't think we had too many quotes, but they said 14,000, but then they said it was based on 300 feet times $40 a foot, which is 12,000. I mean, it seems like you could probably whittle that number down.
We'll go with 16,000?
Just level it off at 15.
15? 16? What are you saying?
Level.
15,000?
Level budget for one more year.
Well, I think just the concept of just replacing the fence, but it's gonna get trashed. There needs to be a little more thought than just replacing the fence to different materials,
Guardrails.
something, other than just putting it up to know it's gonna get hit again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should do something as time goes on, but
Okay, so sounds like there's consensus of 15,000.
Yeah, so I guess we're down to 123 and change.
Okay. Anything else pop out at you all?
Christine.
I would like to, in the next year, look at MVP. I know my employer switched from Blue Cross Blue Shield to MVP, and Fire and Rescue did it this year and saved quite a bit. Might be just something, a project for next year to look at.
What page is the charitable contribution?
Toward the end.
It's actually spread on 2 pages.
Right on the bottom of 3.
I have some thought on that too.
I know, remember last year I said something about that, and I was told that there was some people before my time that came up with a formula for calculating how much the town should spend on this stuff. And that never materialized. I was never provided. I would have no idea where to find it.
We had a committee, after a discussion at a town meeting, they put a committee together, remember that, Dean?
Yep.
That's where that information came from? Or,
I'm
what's this talking
I'm
about?
not sure if they had a percentage. I think they recommended certain organizations that they, at that
How
time.
long ago was that?
Probably
gotta be
5,
at least
10 years.
5 years, well, yeah, maybe 10.
10, probably closer to 10, 8 years.
Mary, you input on that?
Well, just looking at, these are just numbers that people have sent in, say, we would like this. So the biggest one, which we didn't fund anything for last year, is the Lund home at $2,000. We gave them 500 in budget year 16-17. But that's a big one. Vermont Family Network,
The
that's.
one right now is 0 though, right?
No, it's 2,000.
Oh, it's 2,000, got it, yep.
Vermont Family Network, that's brand new this year, not quite sure.
I don't even know what that does.
That's
What do they do?
$1,000. The Red Cross increased their whatever by $500.
The change is $90 less than the town gave last year.
You can, if it's in your, you can take things out And as you would say in the past, let the voters decide. And if it's something that they want, they can put it back in. You guys can decide if this is a category that you want to see something change in.
Well, it looks like out of 18, we removed 5 this year. That's
all.
almost,
That's just those, the ones with 0 are because they never sent anything in to the town. That's,
and, right, we're proposing to give less than we did last year.
And Christina?
Well, I'm gonna kind of play off from what happened at town meeting as far as the Friendship Lodge went. The Friendship Lodge was removed from being tax exempt because it wasn't an all-inclusive, and someone did not want their taxpayers' dollars going to that. I'm curious if my taxpayer dollars are being researched to know exactly where that funding's going, if they have presidents, if those people are paid, so on and so forth, or are those all not-for-profit? And again, why are my taxpayer dollars possibly going for organizations that I wouldn't actually donate to myself because of knowing how the structure of those organizations go? And same thing about your article that you have about putting Friendship Lodge back on. I don't think that needs to be on there. It was voted last year that they were removed. They're not an inclusive group.
We're going to
and
get to that. I agree with that. Yeah.
So I'm just, as a taxpayer, I'm wondering about some of those organizations and exactly how they are funded and where their funds go.
I have a similar philosophical problem with picking and choosing a few of hundreds of charities to give other people's money to. I think charities should give to who they want to. I am not comfortable with being put in the position of picking the charities throughout the state of Vermont to give money to give somebody else's money to.
Can I ask you, Fritz, there's a couple, such as the special investigations, that are directly related to the work in Charlotte. I thought the Red Cross had some examples for us.
Well, I'm
you have to
sure
do
they
that
could
one,
all
that
pick
first
and
one you
choose
talked about.
one
You have to do that
or
one.
2 people in Charlotte that are recipients of their services, and then by that analogy, you should by census find what everybody is recipient to and then give them all money. I mean, we're just picking them. I would bet that there are some charities that give services to members of Charlotte that we don't contribute to.
These are the ones that requested contributions.
It's just my thought. I said the same thing last year. I'll run the same flag up the pole this year.
So, make a proposal to what adjustments would you make?
Oh, well, there's, which ones? I mean, special investigations is a bit of an obligation, isn't it?
Yes,
That's a
I
legal
believe it is,
services.
yes.
One is.
And I believe the Red Cross, I thought, was.
No.
No?
Is visiting nurse an obligation though?
Oh, I think that's what I was
I think
thinking
that's the
about.
one.
Is that here? I think that's the one I was thinking of.
As
Visiting
opposed-
nurse, yeah.
I mean, what do other board members think? And if I'm the odd man out, there's no point in,
I know, I agree with you, Fritz.
I would pick a couple of them that are, well, the special investigations, I know what that is.
What about Lewis Creek? I mean, we're such a participant, and the chair of Lewis Creek is in our town. I mean, is that one wouldn't we want to continue to support that work?
We know that work.
Huh?
And yes, and we know that.
So there's 3 that we definitely,
Lenny?
yes?
Doesn't Lewis Creek already have expense line items in our budget?
What was your answer, Mary?
Pay them $2,700, Lewis Creek.
This is the donation. On
Yeah,
top of what we pay them.
We pay them $2,700 for frog bit within the Conservation Commission budget, and then we give them an extra $600.
So we have two new ones, Lund and Vermont Family, we don't even know what they are.
Is this something we bring up for discussion at town meeting?
I was thinking that same thing. We put it all zero except for those two that we have an obligation to. And
Well, I'd rather
Let
leave the
people
status
decide.
quo and ask people at town meeting if they want to zero it out.
Either way, it's fine.
Okay.
I think it should be a vote of those who show
we gotta
up.
bring,
And then at the ballot.
Lund usually helps single young mothers.
We work with Lund quite a bit at Charlotte, the Congregational Church, yeah, they're very active, they do great work.
Well, the point is not to disparage any of the work any of these organizations do, it's just whether or not the taxpayer should be paying charities.
So there's this recommendation to leave it the way it is, and then, what do you talk about it?
I think, yeah, it sounds like enough people on the board want to question whether the town should continue to value supporting charities or not continue that. But I'd prefer to leave it as it is and ask the town's people to decide to stop doing that, rather than to make that choice for the people and then start a discussion.
Or
the
another
other way around.
updated committee or something to just, we sent you a letter, so give us money with, okay.
So either we
I guess we could leave it the way it is, and then we'll make a point of bringing this section up
Okay.
under the budget and ask for discussion.
I put it all at zeros and it would make them talk. Right. It would bring it to people's attention.
I would put those that required payments by the town and
Right.
let the discussion happen the other way, because everyone knows when Article 5 comes up, depending upon what time of the day it is,
Well, I think
it may
this,
not be one of those things that people want to discuss.
I think this would come up in our presentation at the beginning of town meeting, way before Article 5, that the select board has deliberated on whether or not we should continue this.
But there's two psychologies here, either cut it way back or leave it as it is.
Well, if we cut it back first, the discussion is, do you agree with the select board's value judgment?
Right.
Rather, what is the town's value judgment is what we're asking for, which means leave the status quo. That's the way I see it. And then ask the town what they think, not what they think of what we think.
Okay, so,
Well, I think, if you think.
okay, sounds like we're gonna leave it for now, and we'll talk about it. The other thing that Christina just brought up, Article 3, I think she's totally right. They made a case for the Friendship Lodge at town meeting, it wasn't exempt, and I think we ought to honor that year to year unless someone turns it around.
How did this come up as
So
a draft?
So that is on the agenda. It's on at 8:20. I put it on just because it was discussed last year. I didn't know if there was any intent to reconsider it. I'm not advocating for it, but I thought it should be discussed and decided if the select board decides to not put it on, but I would suggest that you follow the agenda.
You want us to follow the agenda? Okay. Okay. Anything more on the budget? Yes.
Energy committee,
Guide me to where that is. What is it?
on this comparative budget, it's on page 13. Right
Yep.
in the middle.
Yep. Yep.
And we gave them, well, 16-17 budget, we gave them $4,500, and we spent $360 on seminars. 17-18 budget, we gave them $4,030, that's this year right now, and all they've spent it on is seminars.
How much?
And about the same, 300. And
good.
now this budget is for 4,000, and some of the things that they said this 18-19 budget was for were the same things that they said were for this year's budget. So if they have something out there, some energy efficiency service that they're planning on doing, it seems as though they could come to the select board and say, this is what it is, and we would like to do this, and it's gonna cost us $2,000, can you please do it? And you would say, yes, certainly we have the money. But to consistently put $4,000 into a committee for seminars is, I mean, come on,
What do you recommend it should be?
0.
Well, I'm pretty sure in
Or
their,
like 500, just to say, yes, we appreciate, you know, the Energy Committee and that, you know, you're out there and you're doing whatever, but not 4,000.
I'm pretty sure, Mary, were you at the presentation that they gave?
Yep.
So the money that they didn't spend from the previous year for energy audits was returned to the taxpayers.
I
So.
know, but why should we put money in the budget that
Because
we don't need?
they didn't do it. They're planning on doing, I think, the library addition and the fire and rescue station with the new doors was in their presentation. So
I know,
they
the
didn't
library
get to
edition
it.
is quite a ways off.
They didn't, and that one's first. So they didn't get to it. The idea is to budget it for when they do get to it. If they don't get to it, they don't spend the money, it's
Just
not
seems
levied.
like 3 years of
So-
seminars is,
Well, that's what they are spending the money on, and they're not going over budget on the seminars. It's not like they're spending the $4,000 on seminars the way it's sounding like. They're spending X amount, a couple $100 on seminars, I think.
just don't think you should be putting money into the budget just because you think that they're not gonna spend it and then it's gonna go back to the taxpayers as a surplus. You should be budgeting
The budget
what they're
request
doing.
is for what they want to do in the next fiscal year. That was their presentation to us. Well, I think their idea is to see if an energy audit is, anytime there's construction on any buildings that are supported by the taxpayers, they've been doing energy audits. Town Hall, they did one, and that's done by a professional company. They get bids for it. They did one for the senior center to see, and they did one for the library roof. So they look for ways of saving the taxpayers' money over the long haul when there are major changes to any town building.
I think the thought was that the new doors that go on would have a better insulation value than the ones that are there now.
And the people on the committee, actually, I'd say the majority of them work in some capacity in the energy efficiency industry, and so they bring their own skill sets to looking at any construction.
Christine?
Yeah, there's a lot of items though that, like, they budget for it, which is how we base what our tax rate is on, and then they don't use it. And I understand that, you know, maybe something falls through and they don't go to it for the next year, but why can't they come to you? Why can't they have $500, and if they're gonna exceed that, they sit down in front of the select board and they say, hey, we're gonna do an energy audit, we need $3,000. You're budgeting for, there's a lot of items that are small like that, that the budget is, you know, fairly large and not a lot of it gets spent. Why put that number in the budget to begin with? Why not put it at a smaller amount, and if they need more, they come to you guys? That's what the committees are supposed to do anyways, I mean, is to report to the select board on what they're doing and what they need. Why do they need to have their own budget? Why can't they just come to you and you guys approve or disapprove their next step?
Well, it sounds like what I'm hearing is deficit budgeting, where then the select board is constantly looking where to find money because it wasn't budgeted for. The idea, my understanding of budgeting, is to budget for what people think they're going to do. If it doesn't get used, it gets returned and saves on the tax rate of the following year. So,
In a perfect world.
well, every year I've been on, we've subsidized the next year's tax rate with a surplus of unexpended funds from what we budgeted. That, when we set the tax rate 3 years in a row, that's what we've done.
Some of your surplus is actually then tax sales, because for instance, when you guys were way over on legal fees, there was no way to make that up other than various tax sales.
So is there
Which is-
anybody on the board want to make a change to that number?
Why couldn't we work with $2,000, have that? Try that.
Well, I
And
guess.
then they come
I think
to
the
us if they
library-
had,
Any work on the library is at least a year out anyway, so.
Don't forget, this takes you to July 1st of 19. This is the budget that starts.
Definitely in the library's wheelhouse as far as
I think they're going to be fairly.
planning goes, not construction. I mean, the audit, they're working with the architect, who are designing, not working with the contractor who's building.
It's gonna be farther away than that. I think there'd be enough time to do something with to raise it back up or something, or maybe it wouldn't even need to be raised up. It may be a single thing that's gonna happen again that year. If they do the fire station one year and they do the library another year, I don't know how much it costs for these energy audits, but
I think around
but
2,000, 2,500.
Depends on the building. I mean, you wouldn't do an audit, you would do an audit on the building in planning, you would do an audit on a building that's constructed. If you were gonna work with an architect, I don't know what you would be spending money on other than your volunteer
well, that's what I'm saying.
expertise.
The library's gonna be probably almost 2 years out, so it'll be 2020.
And there is already an energy audit for the library.
Right.
You know, where,
Well, there was one before, and they'll have one after the construction is done, but I mean, that's, to me, that's, for completion of that project, is probably 2 years.
So is there a consensus that, does the proposal cut it down to 2,000? Is that, there's a consensus for that?
sure. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I think the process has been, if we're at a point where we're going to arbitrarily be cutting from the budget, I'd like to look at the ones that have the largest percent increases. People who have level funded, I don't think we should arbitrarily remove funding from because they're not here to defend why they had that request. We have a 5.7% increase in the library.
Right, but getting back to the energy committee, I mean, they budgeted 4,500 for 17, and they only used $360.
Which means they return the rest to the town. But now
But
it's
what
more
didn't-
likely that they're
but
going
what
to have
didn't- but
that
what-
project.
What didn't get done?
Well, you'd have to ask them, that's what I'm saying. They were here for a presentation and told us, and they're not here now to tell you. So to arbitrarily cut that tonight seems not responsible. Senior Center's up 11%.
Yeah, I agree that you should give people a chance to talk if you're gonna bust their budget.
I mean, if they were asking for more money, that would be one thing. Or if they spent the money on something that we didn't think they should have, that would be something else. But I don't think either of those things occurred. Other departments are asking for double-digit increases, and we're skipping over those right now.
Right, and the senior center was the maintenance.
Well, the fire director, I think there's more hours.
So this is just the maintenance part of it.
What page are you?
The maintenance went up.
The,
quite a bit.
page 12. I mean, it went from a 7,000 to 14,500.
Yeah, I'm sure they could defend that.
Select Board's down 6.9%. Town clerk is up 4.4%.
I know the senior center, in their presentation, I asked them about the siding that's falling apart on the west side of the building, and they said that wasn't even in their plan. So I think they
Right.
had a number of maintenance things that are,
Yeah,
there's more to do than
they had
they're,
a list.
there's
of-
more to do than they're asking, I think.
Yeah, they had quite a list if I remember right.
We want to invite them in again, or do we want to look for their handout?
I think I was happy with their explanation
Okay.
at their presentation.
Yeah, we were. Okay, anything else anybody wants to talk about?
So,
I think we should go back to zeros on the donation part. Spur the conversation that way, Matt.
Is there a majority that feel that way?
Matt wants to leave it, I could go either way. That leaves two. Speak.
Frank?
I'm fine fine with leaving it as,
Okay.
and trying to figure out whether the town really wants to do it.
Okay,
Well, there you go.
so we should make sure we talk about it at
Yeah.
our presentations. Okay, that's what we had allocated for budget. So the next, on the 16th, we're going to talk about the computer stuff. So you've got a new roll-up for us based on what we've done here. Thank you, everybody. So the next thing, zoning administrator discussion. Thank you, Fire and Rescue.
Christina?
You can come
Christina.
every Monday if you want. What did I do with the? Oh, here, zoning. So, Charlie, do you want to kind of go over how the planning, we have couple things to talk about. Approve the job description, the changes, advertise, and the interview process. Where would you like to start? So we have a job description that we updated, maybe that's the easiest. You've looked at it, and Lee has looked at it, who's helping us in the office. And we're here, we the select board, hear what you have to say, and then we would vote on the job description change. So everybody looked at that? It's been red inked for us here. So it's greater, a lot of the detail under responsibilities, I believe, came from Lee, right, in the reference statute? Is that right, Dean?
Combination, Stewart also had some input. Peter Joslin had a little bit of input.
Frank, you have any comments on?
I'm looking at number 7 in the duties. And it says advise the zoning board of adjustment on application for conditional use and variances and attend ZBA hearings as requested. I'm just trying to figure out why that would be part of the job.
The whole thing or the change?
Why that is in there? I'm just wondering why it would be advise the zoning board of adjustment on applications for conditional use and variances. I mean, I have no problem with the zoning administrator attending hearings. I think it'd be a good learning process anyways. And there would be times where he would be requested to attend a hearing, especially if it was an appeal of his decision. But I don't understand the advisory role to the zoning board.
Would it be to advise the board of applications?
The process is supposed to be the zoning administrator gets the application, he looks at it and sends that to the clerk or the staff for the board, and then the board will look at it. Then the staff will look at it and they'll do it, and they'll warn it and give a staff report and everything to the zoning board. So I'm trying to figure out why the zoning administrator would do this portion.
But it says as requested.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, this one was already in there, and the change to the change is to change as appropriate to as requested.
But I guess my question too is, as we switch structures from Janine's time here and broke it out into 2 roles, I thought we were trying to silo the policing responsibilities of the zoning administrator from the clerking to the board, which would be the judge of such decisions.
You really only appeal from the zoning administrator, which I don't think we've ever had one since I've been
What's that?
here. As far as,
Isn't the advising something more that Daryl would be doing as
the town planner, right.
to the
I-
boards
I
and
think-
not the
Stuart,
administrator?
maybe you have some light on this. I think, I mean, this, as I said, this was in there. I think there might be circumstances as kind of as requested. The zoning administrator may have some input that town planner either hasn't thought of, or maybe a special issue regarding a permit that the town planner isn't aware of.
Well, the board meetings are at night. This at least
Well-
advises them that he might have to show up at night if requested,
Right.
as
Right.
opposed to saying, I don't have to go, it's not my job.
Right, but, I don't know, it's just, to me, the advise the zoning board of adjustment on applications for conditional use and variances just seems odd. In my mind, Stuart, you wanna,
If it's as requested,
Right.
it's just a job description.
right,
It's an option that's available to you, you don't have to take advantage of it. But it's, if, like you said, if you want to come at night or during the day, to advise you background, it was as appropriate, now as requested, it's kind of a minor change,
yeah.
the way we've been operating. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't, even though that's in Jonathan Fisher, even though that's in that copy of the job description, it's not something that's ever been adhered to in the last 25 years, so, that I've been on the board. So I agree with Frank that it's probably unnecessary to have it in there, but it also probably doesn't mean a whole lot either way. I think what would be probably more useful is to get back to a proper clerk of the zoning board structure that the select board did away with when, well, basically when Gloria left and then Brittany left. That
board didn't
was
do
a much more functional system for the zoning board.
Yeah, the select board did do that.
The
Oh.
select board didn't do that.
Oh.
Yeah, basically the select board did, because what happened is they hired somebody, and then they got to the point where I think that Daryl and Joe were doing the job. So they just phased out the clerk that was the planning and zoning office clerk. They phased that person out, and that's what brought Joe, and that's what brought Daryl up to full-time, either 40 or plus hours a week. I mean, right now, when we had Joe here, Joe was working 35 hours, Daryl was working 40 hours, still not getting everything done. And so everything, all the money that went for that clerk has been absorbed by the 2 positions. And those duties of that clerk have gone to, the majority of them have gone to our town planner.
Right.
To write all the decisions for the zoning board, and write all the decisions for the planning commission, and write the town plan, and write the zoning bylaws, and be the town planner. I mean, he's got an awful lot of work to do, it seems like, where I have been advocating for a clerk again, and it gets nowhere most of the time. But to get back to our job description, and to implement the digital storage of all permits and records. Well, you already have above that, manage and maintain all zoning, wastewater, and subdivision records. It seems like
I think the intent there was to focus on the digital storage, because that is the direction, not just Charlotte, but the whole state's going. All state permits now are digital. So
you're gonna expect a new person to implement a digital storage
it's been
routine?
started. It's been started. We have a license with a program that NIMRIC has a permitting program that we have, but it's not fully implemented. It was started when Joe was here, and there are some bugs to work out. So it's not just a matter of maintaining.
Was
it's
this
a
in our
matter of-
town planner's job description?
That was not in the town planner's job description. That wasn't in anyone's job description.
I just think I don't know why it has to be singled out, that's all. Perform continuous process improvement.
I forget whether that was Lee's or,
Whose was 11?
I don't remember. Implement digital storage. There was, I met with Lee and Peter and Stuart, and between us, I think it was one of those.
I mean, that's kind of, the 12 is kind of motherhood, keep up with.
I mean, my only concern in this is that whoever's doing this is responding to a number of sources of authority and demands. And that's a much bigger question. But I mean, this gets to that issue because you have all these things that you want them to do, and who asks them, when do they ask them, how do they respond? I mean, that's the thing that's so difficult about this. We're describing jobs, but there's no real allocation of who controls that. Is it Dean? Is it Frank? Is it anybody here that tells them time to do digital? I mean, who tells them that?
I think, like Dean said, we've got the license for the digital.
I understand, but it's a function of time.
Right.
I mean, these guys are trying to do everything they can, as best they can with their time. And it's simply a function of, do they say, no, I can't do it now for 6 months? And somebody says, well, yes, you have to, and you don't do something else? I mean,
Well, on the most part, I think you're gonna find that there's probably not gonna be any candidate that's gonna come forward when we don't even have it implemented yet, that's going to know anything about the process that we're trying to implement on doing everything digital.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree. Joe Rayum, who left, had never done permitting software before, but he had done software for case management as his previous job, and he was able to make that, use those previous experiences to start with this process. So I don't think, I get what you're saying, that there aren't a lot of people out there that have done this, but I think there's other skills that you can bring towards it.
Christine?
Yes.
Well, I think to Frank's point, I think that you're finding that 11 and what's the other one, 12, are kind of redundant of the other part. For instance, you're specifically talking about the digital storage, but if that's what we're doing in this office, then they're required to maintain all records. And I think that's what Frank was getting at. You already have that mentioned up above, to maintain all records. Why, if this is how that is working in that office, why does it need to be redundant and listed with 11 and 12? That's all.
I think 8, which seems to be managed, the records, I mean, that's a historic task that is, the records already exist. The 11 is somewhat new, so it's implementing the process rather than just maintaining what's already there. A possibility, though, would be, I was going to say to add digital storage to number 8, or digital records, but it's really not just managing and maintaining those records, it's creating the process by which they'll be maintained.
Oh, I thought that's what the program was for and the
It does,
license.
but it takes, as you know, it's not, coming out of the box, it's not working perfectly.
Well, I'm sure there's a learning curve on anything that is new. But I'm trying to, I'm just don't know why it has to be a separate.
Well, it doesn't have to be, we can take it up if you don't think it's.
Well, you could mix 11 and 8. Make
Yeah.
8 a longer
Make 'em-
sentence.
Make it one, yeah.
Manage, maintain, and implement digital storage and storage of saline wastewater. I can see the rationality for making a difference between manage and maintaining records versus digital, because someone will walk in there and see a wall full of filing cabinets and say, I'm stuffing paper in these, that's what I'm doing to maintain it, as opposed to doing it digitally, something different. I think they should get fair warning that they might have to put it on a computer.
And and then in the health officer duties, I'm looking at 3 and 4. Just the last sentence, pretty much. I'm trying to figure out why we're explaining that to,
Which one do you want, 3 under health?
yeah, it says
Where
where
appropriate
appropriate issue health orders for the repair or replacement of such failed systems.
I think that's coming from the manual. That's an existing task.
I understand that, but I mean, in number 2, you have enforce the provisions,
Right.
which would include
That, yeah.
issuing health orders, and then on 4, issue appropriate health orders in response to public health hazards. All that's based in the enforcement of the provisions in Chapter 3.
Uh-huh. Redundant.
So pretty much, it's just redundant.
So Chapter 3, Title 18 does what 3 and 4 says?
Well, you can keep the inspect reported failed systems, but I mean, they're basically gonna do that anyways. I mean, to enforce the provisions of Chapter 3, part of that is to inspect reported failed systems. Part of that is to manage and perform the water sampling. I mean, the performing water sampling, I think, is probably a good thing to have. It should be in there, because not everybody might know that they have to do that, but I think the enforcement part is already said in Chapter 3.
So be specific to us then. So is there a,
I was taking out, in number 3, I was taking out the last sentence.
Or appropriate issue health orders for the repair or replacement of such failed systems.
Yeah. And then,
Aren't you just providing clarity that this
Yeah,
person's
that's what I think.
responsibility to do that task? Up above, it says enforce the provisions of Chapter 3. It doesn't say that that person's gonna carry out the duties of it. They just gotta make sure somebody does it. So aren't you actually asking this person to actually be the one that issues, to be very specific and issue these things? Isn't that what that gets at?
that's part of the duties under the enforcement provisions.
It says in the provisions that the zoning administrator is responsible for issuing the,
Yeah, for all health orders.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what it says in there.
Mhm.
Okay.
what's the other change you want?
And I was just gonna change the last one for, the last part of the sentence for
What number?
4. I mean, I like you said, it's not that they're wrong.
It's clarity, right?
It's just not that they're wrong.
Yeah,
It's just that, and maybe you feel that it makes it more clear for somebody looking at it. I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah, because then otherwise they'd have to look up Chapter 3.
Well, they have to anyways.
But if they were just looking at the job description to see if they could do all the, well, I suppose.
So can we live what's there? I mean, it's clarity. We're not making further
Yeah,
demands.
it doesn't really change what his responsibilities are. The only other thing is on the policies. I mean, you wrote including the conflict of interest policy. I mean, it should be all policies, and that's what you have at the beginning.
So you don't need conflict? Is that
I mean, again, it may be clarity, but I mean, we do have other policies.
Yeah. Maybe that goes without saying. I mean,
I guess it does. I mean, that's pretty clear, because you can find all of our policies in the book. So you want to delete, including the conflict of interest policy?
or potentially that whole provision. I mean, all town policies apply to all town employees. This was originally, I think, a comment of a planning commissioner, actually it wasn't Peter, but kind of highlighting that conflict of interest should be, considered and I guess it.
I think that's probably because of the interviews
Maybe.
that happened before, since there were conceptual conflict of interest, that they wanted to make sure that was put in here, I'm assuming.
Yep. So Frank, would you,
So that might be just clarity.
Yeah.
you want to make a motion, Frank? To approve this? If you want to delete that, say so.
No, we can leave the conflict. The only one like I said, the main thing, were in the duties and.
But it sounds like we're saying that's clarity. So
And you're saying it's clarity. I mean, I don't see where it's any big deal. Like I say, it can be in the job description, but it may not be something that's actually going to that may happen. Or maybe even be looked at later on, I don't know.
Are you talking specifically health officer or the other one?
Both, all of them. Now, did we clarify whether the health officer was stipend or whether that was going to be a part of his pay in this job?
Stipend.
So does that need to be changed?
changed where?
To be, I mean, if we're gonna call
Compensation.
this person our zoning administrator, health officer, 911 coordinator, and we're gonna set a pay rate, I'd like to set a pay rate for the position.
Yeah, we went through this with the cleaning of the town hall. You can't have somebody on payroll and then give them another check from the same entity. So I think by the labor rules, you can't have a person who's on payroll get a stipend because you have to pay comp and all the other stuff. So I think that should be folded into the hourly wage somehow. I'm thinking do both of those.
So that's looking at the Palmer analysis to see if addition of health officer changes the,
So that doesn't change this job description, though. So it's a good question.
No.
So it doesn't change it, Joe. So are you?
Well, it would change, it might not change the job description, but would it change the ad on the pay rate?
so the way this job description is written is it is compensation according to the salary administration policy, positions paid hourly, and then the ad does not say anything about a stipend.
Just take the stipend and divide it by the number of hours and add it.
I say the stipend just drops,
Okay.
and we just go with the ZA, and
Okay.
we give him the title and the responsibility.
Maybe it might change the rating if it's.
Doesn't get paid for the 911 coordinator.
Okay.
It's all in there.
I know.
Then
Isn't
there you
that
have it.
nice?
This job's graded on anyways.
So,
Yeah, I think it happened, the issue came up because the previous health officer, which wasn't the zoning administrator, was paid a stipend. And then we swapped with the deputy health officer. So at that point,
It's moved around a lot.
Okay,
In the
yeah.
last, I was it for a year or so, and
So
they get a
just-
stipend, but it's just been a floating responsibility, but
Make
we're
it-
pretty firm here.
it's an hourly, okay.
Okay, we're looking for you, Frank, to,
I'm okay. I don't see anything that's standing out, you know, like, has to be changed. I mean, I think that to me, there should be a lot of attention based on their ability to work with the public and look through the loads of paperwork they have to look at more than the computer skills, but I don't know if that's what everybody would think.
I agree.
Which is covered in here. So
Which is covered in here. Stuart, you got any other questions on this?
I mean, it's a very broad job description, and you're never gonna get anybody that hits on all cylinders in that. It gives them a heads up as to what might come. And so, I'm certainly happy with the description. I read through it, I made a contribution, you know, talking about actually having hands-on decision-making experience, and that's key to my opinion. But beyond that, I mean, everything, it's all aspirational anyway. You're never gonna find a person that has all of these things, but it's describing our expectations. And as long as they say, yeah, I can approach that, I'm willing to do that, or try to do it to my best abilities, that's essentially all we're asking.
Thank you.
So we're looking for a motion to approve this by the board.
So I'll make a motion to approve the job description draft presented on January 8th for the zoning administrator, sewage control officer, E91 coordinator, and health officer for the town of Charlotte.
Second?
Second. Any further discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay. The next piece of that is the advertising.
So we usually advertise in 7 days. They go both. They have a hard copy and they have an online version. They also have a Twitter feed that goes out immediately. But I think we're too late for this week for the hard copy paper. But this was the proposed ad. It's the same as we advertised before.
So when are you closing it? Is there a deadline?
The deadline is January 26th, which if it hits next week's paper, comes out on Wednesday, this would give them 2 weeks to respond.
Everybody good with that? We need a motion, or we don't normally vote on that? Everybody good with it? Okay, good. The third part is the interview process. Charlie, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, so we talked about it last week at our, I think it was last week, we talked about it at our planning commission meeting. And at the time, as we understood it, it was the responsibility of the planning commission to make a recommendation to the select board as to who it would be. So we thought we would come up with an interview process that would include 5 people off the planning commission, and then Dean, a representative from the select board, and a representative from the zoning, sure, a representative from the zoning board. And we would then use that group and create a smaller group to ask to do the actual interviewing process. Everybody would be present for it, but we wouldn't have that many people asking, sort of firing questions at one person, didn't want to make it like it was an inquisition, but rather have maybe 2 people set to be the interviewers who would ask the bulk of the questions. Then if something comes up during the interview, somebody else wants to ask a question, that's fine to jump in, but we weren't going to have it be a semicircle with a light on the person kind of thing. So, so that's what we had come up with conceptually for a interview process at our meeting last week.
So it was 5 PC,
Yep.
and then you said just 1 zoning and 1
Select board.
Select board and Dean. And from that group, we would then select who would do because some people are interested in asking questions and some people are not. So we'd take volunteers that wanted to sort of take a lead on the interviewing.
And Charlie, what do you think the process would be for the recommendation? The 5 would take a vote on behalf
I assume that whole group would take a vote.
Okay.
That's what we assume that that group that would be there would all have input and discuss and come up with a recommendation that we would then pass along to the select board.
And then the select board would interview them.
Yeah, yeah, if that's what you guys want to do, or if you wanted, if we were fortunate enough to have 2 top candidates, we could set up a follow-up interview for the top 2 and have other people there, or do it in a different format as a follow-up interview.
We've been doing 2 interviews for the last few years.
Some you only need 1.
Right. But
So we'll.
the ones we were interested in, we
Yeah.
had 2. And if you had a lot of them, you could have.
It seems like we're venturing into new ground and trying to really honor the peculiar statute that has the planning commission recommend this administrative position to the select board to then say yes or no to. And I'm wondering if having a select board member vote on the recommendation that's supposed to come from the planning commission is something we should try and avoid. They might be present during that interview, because I think the planning commission can have whatever process they want to make the recommendation, but I think only the planning commission should make the recommendation.
I
to
assume the
select board.
recommendation will come from the planning commission, that we conducted an interview process with a group of people, and this is the person that the planning commission is recommending.
And that,
So we could do that, that's
Yeah,
fine.
and
if we
the
wanna-
5 is a quorum, so the
Yep.
planning commission might delegate the 5 people doing the interviewing to decide by a majority.
Well, they wouldn't even
But-
have to decide because it'd be a majority anyways.
That's what I
Maybe
mean.
they're gonna be a majority.
Right,
So that's a good input. So you've just said,
but I wouldn't have a select board member voting on
Right.
the recommendation to the select board.
so it's your,
Yeah, we'll have
you can listen to the feedback.
Yeah,
Right,
From the
right.
zoning.
Yeah,
I
we'll
mean, I
take
think
the
it's
feedback.
great that
and-
you're including them in the process. It
Yeah.
seems to streamline it.
Well, I'd recommend if you weren't gonna have a selectman on this committee, I would recommend that we have more ZBA members on it.
I wasn't saying not have them there for the interview, I was just saying
Because
not have them
I
vote.
just think that for on the most part, the zoning board has to make sure that the zoning administrator makes a proper decision when it comes to an appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. So we're looking at everything that sometimes that the zoning administrator has to look at to issue a permit. So on the most part, the ZBA is doing that process. Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, my sense is the planning commission makes the nomination, but the statute doesn't describe how the selection process is made. And I think in the end, I mean, we all know it's gonna land in the select board's lap. So you guys may as well be active to begin with.
That's what I think too. I agree with you.
And
the
the
zoning
zoning
board.
board works closely with the ZA. Okay, I mean, and it would make sense, no more than the ZA, no more than we, the zoning board, would be involved in hiring a planner as a practical matter. And that's not our area of expertise, that's those guys. I think the way the statute's set up tends to be, from who knows what historical precedent about who makes what decisions in town. We know what's gonna happen. I think the idea is one is to have your interview process as long as possible. Typically, you learn a lot the more you talk to people. I mean, you just do. And to set it up so that it's as close to, you don't want to have it divided, or let's put it this way, you don't want to have somebody selected that's not supported by everybody. That is a lousy start for a new employee. I mean, they're going to know. I don't care how you do it. They're going to know that it's a 3-2 or 5-6 or whatever the heck the vote was. I mean, and this person is the gatekeeper. I mean, think about it. Out of all the, they're not putting out fires, but the point is they are the gatekeeper of all the input about the quality of the town, the town plan, the zoning. I mean, that is the cutting edge of what a town is going to be. They got to have somebody that people have confidence in.
So are you suggesting something here, what Charlie just
I'm
proposed?
suggesting having as much diverse input at the beginning as possible.
He said 5, 1, and 1 is what he said.
No, but by the same token is that, my point is that we on the zoning board work with this person on an intimate basis.
Okay.
And I would think that I always want to see as much participation by us as possible in that selection process. And to set it up on a vote, I don't know how the vote would be set up, it would depend on the number of people, but have it set up so you almost have to have a unanimous vote.
I understand that
That's
point.
gonna drive, that's gonna really drive some cooperation instead of moving off into camps. I mean, you know you gotta get somebody that everybody likes instead of.
But do you want, at the same time, do you want 10 people sitting in the room?
No, you don't need that,
So then what about what Charlie just offered?
which is what,
5, 1, and 1.
Well, 5, 1, 1, and 1. He's got
5, 1, 1, and, that's right, 3 ones. You're right.
You've got 8 people.
That's 8
So if
people.
you have-
That's just select, that's not interviewing, that's just selecting out of the.
No, that's interview.
That's, no,
That's
they're
interview.
talking the
I
interview.
don't even see
The
the,
candidate's gonna end up getting 3 interviews.
well, right, I don't see the
It's very
need for
possible.
the select board member on the initial interview process for recommending to the select board, because I don't think there's any way that one select board person is gonna be able to transmit enough information to the 4 others about that recommendation, so
Not according to open meeting laws.
Right, I see there being at least another interview round with the select board of that nominee.
So what are you recommending then?
Well, it sounds like the ZBA would like more input, and we could replace the select board with another ZBA.
Well, you're gonna get one automatically anyway.
Oh, you're doing? So we could have 2 ZBA and the 5 PCs?
And Dean.
And Dean?
Well, and then they're gonna make a recommendation to us, or do we, the select board, have to have an interview with the top candidate, or what?
Well, the PC nominates someone through their interview process,
Yeah.
and then
Do
we
we-
would interview that person. I wouldn't want to hire someone blind.
Okay, so it's a single candidate, we would then have a second interview with the select board with that single candidate, or even if it's 2 candidates. Okay,
Oh,
That's
yeah,
how I.
Why are we
it says the
changing
PC nominates, it doesn't say that it nominates 1.
okay, that's fine. It's just not-
And I'd like to, and like Stuart said, I'd like to see a unanimous vote on this in your committee that you're creating, so that you, as much as you can, I mean, you may not be able to get a unanimous vote. It may be difficult, but I mean, there should be as much of a unanimous vote as can be possible with this selection process. And like I said before, I think the zoning board deals with a lot of what the zoning administrator does. They work closely with them. So I would like to see at least a strong ZBA input on this.
But, so I as well feel like the zoning administrator is what Stuart was saying, he represents all of us. We represent the people as well, and I would want to make sure that I knew who was going to be representing as well. I would want to know that more than just one round of interview.
I mean, maybe my idea of unanimity is a pipe dream, but you can very quickly break up into camps. You know, one group likes this person, another group doesn't, and all of a sudden you wind up having a division right away. I mean, maybe they win 5-2 or who knows what, but the point is all of a sudden you have that, and you're not forced to really compromise. I mean, that's what deliberations are all about. I mean, my experiences with jurors, you put them in a hot box, you say, okay, figure it out. Okay, you don't like it? Too bad. Stay in there until you figure it out. If you can't figure it out, start again. But otherwise, you don't want to wind up what history has happened, which is where you have more than one.
I got the theory, I'm trying to get the practical application. So 5, 2, and 1. And then you're gonna come up with 1 or 2 candidates.
Yeah.
And then the select board will meet that 1 or 2 candidates and interview as a follow-up. Is that what we've said now,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
5, 2 zonings, Dean, you make a recommendation, 1 or 2 people, and then the select board at a later date will meet those 2 candidates. And that'll be your recommendation to us, those 2 or 1.
Yeah.
Okay, but then the question, do we decide now how that vote is taken? I mean,
What about the groups decide?
are we going to decide that internally?
I assume we'll do that once
Okay.
when we get there and figure it out. I don't know that we'll.
Does he get 2 votes?
Okay, so we got a
He
plan?
does, but not, they're one after the other.
You got that all recorded, so we don't have to reinvent this?
Frank, you okay?
It's recorded. It's like anything, it's like you said with the division of camps, I mean, with, with having a limited number of other people other than the planning commission, if it would always go, you know, the planning commission's way in that respect, which I'm hoping will be a fair process and they'll do what's best for the town. You know, I'm relying on them.
Educated about what we go through.
Right, I'm relying on them, and that's part of what I have to do, because this is what we've got them here for, is to do this.
Yeah, I don't see us, I mean, we don't have a hidden agenda or anything like that
No.
to try to find somebody that's not
No.
gonna be the right person to be
I'm
there.
fine with the, with what's going on.
The
With
5-2 and the
with-
1? One or two candidates
Yeah.
come back? Okay, so we're all good with that then?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Job description, advertisement, and a plan to interview.
Sounds good.
So we gotta we'll probably have to extend Lee beyond the end of January.
Yeah, I warned him today.
Okay. Everybody good on that topic?
Yeah, I talked with Lee today, and they were talking about, he talked about the process, and he said, years ago, the select board nominated and the PC hired.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a little unique
Yeah.
and backwards,
Yeah.
but,
Well, it's different for each town. When you look online,
Well, this
some
is-
towns have very specific hierarchies as to who nominates, who selects. It's amazing. Right in the statute, it's written right in.
really. Okay.
And we're going by the generic, but all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, there's all these different choices. But then you look, and the heading of the statute was throwing Wolcott, Colchester, East Montpelier, Berlin. It's baked into the statute.
Yeah.
Is that because of charters
I
or?
have no clue.
Huh.
Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah, I looked at some of
Yeah,
the,
it's
some
a
of the
little bit
different things for, not only for that, but for the town plans, and some of those had different rules for different
I think it's
towns.
related to charters. It has to be.
Yeah, has to be.
Okay, we're halfway through our agenda. Thanks. Okay. Town meeting warning. Okay, Dean, we're late to our schedule, but we're in sequence.
We're on the right, okay.
Okay, you want to go through the articles?
1 and 2 are standard.
Yeah, so we're on to number 3. My recommendation is we delete number 3. We voted on deleting it last year. I don't think we should bring it up unless somebody in the audience brings it back to us.
I concur.
Okay, so we're deleting 3?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Number 4, is the budget.
Do we have any numbers yet, or
Well, no.
is that something we can,
We're not going to have that until after
Yeah.
next week.
Right.
okay?
Number 5, I think Mary suggested not indicating that the money goes to the improvement and repair reserve fund. I guess the only thing I would say is putting it in the improvement repair fund allows it to be carried over. If for some reason we don't do it in the fiscal year, the money's there, and that was what it was dedicated for. Similar to, you know, if we're putting money in the recreation reserve fund, we know that that's what it's there for. So actually, that would be an additional article.
Let me ask Fritz, so we're going to have from March town meeting until July 1st of 2019.
If you can't get it done in 15 months,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
they shouldn't be paying you to do it.
So we would just say Article 4 for the purpose of purchasing and installing?
Article 5, yep.
Article 5?
Okay.
Okay?
Article 6, we've discussed.
Yep, so that's good. So Article 7 is standard,
is standard,
8 is standard.
correct?
And the new 9.
Now, Article 11, we're going to bring back up, right?
We're gonna delete.
Oh, we're going to delete it.
You're gonna put in 30,000 for recreation.
Yeah, we're gonna,
Above
Yeah.
Australian ballot for.
as an
voting on-
article?
For
What did
voting
we
on the
just say?
floor.
That's what was discussed.
For voting on the floor.
For voting on the floor.
Right.
Which would not be in the Australian ballot section.
Right, and the number now is 30,000.
Right.
So that goes above, so that'll be an Article 9, right?
Or Article 7,
Yeah, probably above with the generator.
Okay,
and 7 will become 8, and 8 will become 9.
okay,
I think I'll probably renumber all of them, so.
okay. So it's 30,000, not Australia, right? Oh, that's good. Okay,
Just regarding Article 10, so you're meeting on Tuesday, the 16th, starting at, the agenda's on your desk.
it is here. So we're going to start 6 o'clock,
And you'll
and the
be,
town plan's discussed at 6:30.
right.
Is that gonna be ready for town vote?
It's ready.
Ready for what?
Is that gonna be ready for town vote?
So where is the planning, where is it?
So,
Done.
Were the maps redone?
All reprinted?
yes, yeah, so Daryl worked on it. You might have noticed that there was an email sent to all of you at 5 a.m.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. The hearing has been warned, the second select board hearing. It will be up to you to decide whether or not to put it on, as either a result of your review on the 16th or the public hearing on the 22nd. You'll have a vote on the agenda for the 22nd to put it on the warning, and you'll approve the warning afterwards. So that's the time when you'll decide whether you're ready or not to put it on the warning.
And that is on the 6th, what day is that?
That'll be on the 22nd, after the public hearing.
The public hearing's on the 22nd.
Right.
And when is this need to be submitted? Into
By the
into
29th.
report? By the 29th,
Well, the 29th is the very, very, very drop dead date, so
for the last edit of this.
that's when it gets submitted to the printer.
So,
Not gonna do any more of it.
so the town plan is, I don't want to get too involved in it, but they got everybody's inputs. And they have a list of everybody's inputs.
This was after our first hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
People
And-
put in inputs.
And Daryl and the planning commission were kind enough to assemble all that, incorporate it. They had 2 or 3 meetings. I attended one, you may have been at one. And Daryl got everything in and finished it at 5 o'clock Sunday morning. So we can look at it next Tuesday, and if we say we don't like it, the maps aren't done or something.
And this counts as the second hearing, not a new first hearing.
Right, the second hearing on the 22nd.
Yes.
Your meeting on the 16th is just a review. It's open to the public, but it's not a public hearing. It's a work
That's
session.
our work session.
Yeah, to make sure you're satisfied.
With the,
Town plan.
with the edits to the town plan.
Yes.
This is not gonna be our document,
Yes.
so if we change it, somebody gotta change it.
Is it ready now for them to review?
It is, except that it's online. Daryl printed one copy, which I gave to the clerk, as required by statute. I had hoped to print more or have Daryl print more, but we didn't get to that yet.
Do we have a red line copy?
I don't think it's redlined.
So I know what was changed,
What's
so I don't
changed?
have to try to put these two
There's
pieces
a-
side
There's
by
a
side.
spreadsheet. The
There's
spreadsheet,
a spreadsheet of all the changes
yeah.
that were requested.
And
Does that, but
what change was made or not made.
so there's a
that's
side,
online
there's
also.
a side sheet that says what page and everything,
Yep.
what was there and what was changed,
Who offered the change, what the change was, where it was.
and what it was changed to.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And so on the 16th, we
Planning zoning site.
worked on it, we're working on it.
Sorry?
So if on the 16th we change something gets changed, That's the way.
If you
Then
change
what?
anything, it would need an additional hearing after the 22nd, and that would throw it off in terms of the timing of the adoption.
So the 16th really is just for us
Make sure
to
we're
get
satisfied.
familiar with it, right? Yeah.
Okay?
Or it gets delayed.
Or what, delay it?
Or it gets delayed.
Right, exactly. Okay. Anything more on the articles? Select Board's annual report. So this is what I've done the last few years. I put this together.
I found something right off in the beginning.
Okay.
So Fritz was reelected to serve a 3-year term, and Frank Tenney was elected to serve the 2-year. I don't think we need to name names and say that somebody got defeated. It's kind of sad for them.
That's good.
Let's see, in the town plan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, I just capitalized day, town meeting day,
Okay.
and the end of that paragraph, a period.
Yep.
Under charter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. I had a question about that. I always like apples to apples. So at the town meeting, 173 residents approved the budget because it was unanimous, and there was 173 people there.
Yeah, I got that information from Mary in an email, yes.
Okay, however, the budget vote was not effective until an Australian ballot vote was completed in April 2017. At that time, how many people voted for it? That would be the apples to apples.
Well, that's not what I think's apples to apples. I think it's the residents who had the opportunity to vote. So 173 had that they did vote, and 475 did vote.
Well, what it's not showing is the support. So the apples to apples that would include your definition would be the breakdown of it. So if it was 350 to 125.
I would put it in parentheses, but to me, the point is, you got twice as many, almost 3 times as many people.
But the point that's not being shown is we got 1/3 of the number of people that come to historical ballot initiatives.
Say that again?
So usually about 1,500 to 2,000 people vote. But for the budget, only 475 people voted. That's not being...
Oh, for the
that's-
special town meeting, okay.
That's not being represented. To me, that's part of the information I think people in town should understand with how the charter is operating. That's
Okay.
at a significant deficit of participation.
So what would you change?
Well, I think I would put all the information in there. Like you said, the more information we provide about how it's going, the better. So I'd give the count, yays versus nays, equals 475 participated.
And put in parentheses,
and
yays and nays?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'd also say, at the last, pick a number, at the last 4 townwide Australian ballot votes,
We know that number.
yeah, what's
mean
the
in
average?
March?
Yeah, what's the
It was
average?
like 1,300 or something.
I would put that average in there.
Is that, I mean, some years you have,
That's why I want an average. That's what averages would provide. You know,
Okay.
you could do a 5-year average, but the idea is to show
the
participation.
number.
I don't see it that way. I see
I do.
the number of people voting on the town budget.
Yay or nay, though.
But
Well, that's
It
fine.
looks like it's,
That's
The
fine.
number of people voting on the town budget is, it should at least be given a percentage of the amount of people in town. You know, like, there needs to be some type of
So
global.
town meeting wasn't very effective.
Well, town meeting,
Only had 473 people
Right.
took the time to sit.
Town meetings never, to me, is never that effective because it's in the middle of the week. But to Matt's point, usually for people that come out for town meeting, there's usually at least 12 to 1,500 people that come out in March.
Which happened.
But there
this
is,
is the
but there's only 475 that came out to vote on this.
Okay.
So you only have a third of the people that normally vote, not even talking
normally
about not even talking the registered voters. That normally vote in March,
didn't vote for the
didn't
budget.
even come to vote for
That's a
the budget.
missing.
Are you making a case that town meeting is no longer necessary, like the school budget? I mean, you're making that, by
No.
saying what you're saying.
No, not that, not, I'm
Because-
saying that having
Just
it
trying
on
to-
a different time seems to, our charter says to have it 30 days, over 30 days later. I think having this special Australian ballot seems to me that it's not, you're not getting the participation that you get during regular town meeting.
My goal would be to have the numbers illustrate in black and white and not try to paint something rosy or to paint something sour.
I agree with that.
So then
So-
the percentage of the 173 should also,
I think it should be what the ballot vote count was town meeting day and what the ballot vote count was on the special election day.
You're saying.
it was a
Australian?
hand vote on.
No, there were
Oh.
other
Other
elections.
Australian
How
ballot.
many people
Oh,
came to the
okay,
ballot on
okay.
town meeting day?
On the
How
mo-
many people came to the
Australia
ballot?
ballot?
On the most part, how many people voted for Junior on
That's,
on
that's the
town
number that's
meeting
missing.
day, which is usually the highest one,
Total
We know
number
what
of
that
votes.
is.
compared to how many people voted
For the budget,
for
on
the
budget
budget
day.
on
That's
in
showing a
April.
global picture.
But to me, that makes a case the town meeting isn't working. Forget the charter. It just says you have 1,400 people voted Australian ballot on March town meeting, yet only 173 hung around to raise their hand for the budget.
That doesn't mean it's
It's
not.
got nothing to do with the charter.
That doesn't mean it's not working. That means that's how it works. In every town in Vermont.
Right.
That's how budgets are passed.
That's true.
That doesn't mean it's not working.
Right, because the other 1,000 people are coming either at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 at night. I mean, I'm sure you've asked Christine or any one of the other people that work the booths there, from 7 o'clock in the morning until probably 9 o'clock, it's like, and then again from 4:30, 5 o'clock until 7, it's like crazy. So,
But the mid-year primaries, I don't know, I'm picking a number of the year, they had 200 people. You know? Australian ballot.
Oh, that's in November.
Yeah.
But I think we should do, the town meeting ballot of the same year makes sense. Like, how many people came out to vote a month earlier? That's a pretty relevant number. And representative of participation that year.
Sounds like a town clerk report.
Well, it probably is.
But then we can see,
But I'm not sure what we're saying here.
Well,
I don't think we're saying
understand.
anything, we're just,
We're
if
just
we're
giving
giving
numbers.
numerical information,
That's
I think
right.
we should be giving it all. How many people voted by ballot?
So you want to say in town meeting, we had 173
Approved
voted for the budget and
traditional floor vote.
1,350 voted Australian ballot
On town meeting day.
on town meeting day.
But that wasn't the budget related.
Yeah, nothing to do with the
They
budget.
just
That's the
voted.
problem.
That's how many
though.
people voted on
Yeah,
town
but-
meeting day.
But this is about the budget. The charter's for the budget.
But I guess my point is, we're talking about participation, not about budgets. And we need to illustrate what participation is like in town for people to see a picture of participation. If you want to add in another metric, budgets, that's a different discussion. But if we're looking at participation, to
You have to
look
look at
at, then we should
drives
look
the
at,
participation.
I
I
mean,
mean, there's nobody, maybe they all showed up because they wanted to vote for
Junior.
Frank?
Or Frank or Junior, right.
But
If-
think
if-
about,
If there was nobody, you know, if you go back to an uncontested ballot, is the same, I mean, it's the same amount of people showing up. I mean, you don't have the driver for that metric. You're assuming that one's budget, strictly budget, and the other one is all kinds of stuff, people and other things. So when you compare the two, it's not fair to say that participation, because you're leaving out the factor of what drives their participation.
so for me, the charter is still an experiment, right? And people need information to understand how the experiment's operating. And to leave out what the actual voter ballot participation number is on town meeting day is leaving out information that people need to assess the effectiveness of voting a month later. If we,
It sounds like I said, a town clerk report, just a chart, you know? How many showed up, what the average is. I mean, you
Because-
go back 3-year average or 5-year average and say
Well-
average on town meeting day, 1,500 people voted.
right,
Australian ballot, 173.
and I would just, I would,
Abstract does do that.
and I would do that in those two sentences, so that those numbers are side by side. And the reason I would is because in 3 years, when it comes time, or in 2 years, when it comes time to revisit the charter, the more information people have about where do we get the most voter participation, they'll be looking, we can look back at these reports and see very clearly where the voter participation is occurring.
Well, I got that, and I'm not even making a case for the charter here, I'm just trying to make a case for your point. So you want it to say 173, at town meeting, 173 residents voted for the budget, and 1,350 voted on Australian ballot.
Yeah.
And then on April, 475 voted Australian ballot, it was only one article. Do you want to say, what about the presidential budget? The presidential, do you want to say how many voted there? Because they had a very large turnout there.
Good. I don't think it's pertinent to, this is the charter section.
Yeah, but the charter's only the budget.
Well, currently, but that's not what a charter is designed for. The charters are designed to do a whole host of
To
things.
do anything
for
we
the
want
town.
it to do.
And so that's why I want to have the participation on town meeting day, when decisions are made by the town, to just be reflected by that one sentence of 1350.
Okay.
That way we can see, you know, maybe the next year, it's 300 voted at town meeting, 1,300 voted ballot on town meeting day, and 900 voted for the budget a month later. But we'd track the numbers, those three numbers.
Just as a point, whatever numbers you want, participation reports I have to file with the election divisions. So you tell me what year and what vote you want, and I'll be able to tell you the numbers. Right now, I have a chunk that's in the vault because we were switching from one system to the other to the state. So I don't have easy access in the new system because it kind of ran half and half. But if you email me, if you want a 5-year average of Australian ballot town meeting, I mean, it's pretty simple. We have those actual printed off reports.
I think just having the same year makes sense.
Then we're just
because
missing one number.
Right, right, because
So all we want is the number,
Australian
Ballot,
for
last
town
year.
meeting.
2017.
Right,
be
that's all we
awesome.
want. And I would like to say 173 budget, then 1,350
ballot
Australian ballot.
related, yeah.
That's fine. Whatever the number, right, whatever
So
it
you
was.
want March 17th.
Australian ballot. Okay.
And then in parentheses, that breakout of yays, nays.
I think to your point, okay, the 475, you want yays and nays. 475 was participation, because that's what I thought we're trying to get. But yays and nays, that's fine.
And then you can see the support change too.
Okay.
If it was unanimous at town meeting, but it was a narrow margin by ballot, that's
an
good
interesting
information to
piece of
have.
information.
The last line, experts on both sides, just add an S. Last line.
Under which section?
Hops and East Thompson's Point Road.
Did you have the number, I mean, you have on, back to the charter one, you have 173 residents approve the budget. Did we have a total of?
It was to 0. I mean, it was unanimous the last 2 years. on the floor.
Okay. Just clarifying. Thank you.
Land conservation, second line. I just put the comment, the comma after Hinsdale. I just move it to the other side of the third. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
The next line down.
An English teacher.
I got it. Next line down, I think Ward Preston and Dillon Preston, I would say below rather than under its market value.
Okay. That's fine.
In the senior center,
Yep.
kind of style, but the expansion of the senior center that included either a colon or a semicolon for that list.
That included, okay, yeah.
And then entryway is one word.
Entryway, yeah.
Adding office space and then strike the.
Yeah.
And creating a double door foyer to minimize cold weather.
Yep.
Town roads and bridges. The select board approved a design and obtained funds, add the S.
Obtain funds, yeah.
Second from the bottom line, already addressed, ED.
Yep.
Above that with Road Commissioner Hugh Lewis Jr., commas on the wrong side.
Yep.
Your Commissioner what?
Move the comma?
Move the comma.
Move the comma on the third line down.
Or delete the comma and just
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you're
could
right.
do that.
Yeah, or delete the comma, either way.
The next paragraph in there. So, I just wasn't clear about this. With the completion of the Seguin Bridge reconstruction project by the state, so they ran that project.
They did.
Um,
It costs so much.
And it was one report or multiple state inspection reports?
Most
Multiple.
recent.
The most recent,
Each bridge gets a report.
got it.
Supposed to be every other year they do 'em.
The next page, the sentence about Mary at the top, it's continues the November 27, 2017 Select Board meeting. I would put in for her outstanding and take out the, because the sentence starts with her.
This, you're on which one now? This is,
Did I get that right?
was commended,
Yeah, Mary Mead was commended at the November Select Board meeting for her outstanding
for her, got it.
work allowing for the flawless financial report.
Yep.
The trail scoping project, the 45,000 grant for a scoping study to determine the best trail route options. It wasn't from Melissa and Trevor Mack. The scoping study was from Town Hall to Mount Philo State Park.
It was 50,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we did the match, so maybe the grant was for 45 and
Right.
we ponied up 5.
I thought the grant was for 50.
The project was 50. The contract was for 50, but we paid 10%.
So what do you want that number to be?
Well, it's not the number, it's, I'd strike the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail, and I'd put in from Town Hall to Mount Philo State Park.
Was it really that? Did we really get into that? Just a
Yeah.
little bit though, huh?
No, it was
Town
3
Hall?
sections.
Okay, yeah,
And
you're right.
from that, the Trails Committee decided to
you're right.
apply for a section from the
Yeah, you're right.
And then the second paragraph down near the bottom, continuing in the middle, continuing on the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail to the state park.
Okay.
But they're still, of the 3 options, it seems the most likely are on State Park Road, but that's not what the scoping study,
So it's
reflected.
just two Mount
To
Philo-
the state park,
Two
yeah.
Mount Philo
Yep.
State Park,
Sure.
delete road.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay.
Oh, wait, just, wait, so that's, you're talking about the second paragraph in that trail scoping? Is that where you are?
Yeah.
You added the word
So-
"the" in front of State Park Road on that second paragraph
Well,
there.
trail to the state park, period.
Well, so but that's talking about the tunnel. Let's see, this now allows for off-road trail from Greenbush.
Still,
So
the town hadn't cited from Melissa that it was gonna go along the road. there were two other options, option A, B, and C.
Right, but at this point, I think, and I mean, Blaine's one who wrote it.
What I was trying to say was, this now
Current moment.
State Park Road is,
allows for the off-road trail from Greenbush at Champlain Co-housing through the tunnel,
Yeah.
continuing on Trevor Mack Trail. Oh, but,
So that's all we have right now. We're
yeah,
not
we don't
talking-
have, you're right, we don't.
Right.
So, shoot,
Well, no, there is no trail to State Park,
so you just,
to the park.
so we,
Goes to State Park Road.
Right,
it goes to State Park Road, right, to the State Park Road, not to the park. So it dumps you out, the Melissa Trail dumps you out to State Park Road,
Yes.
Right, and that's,
Oh.
and that's what's been constructed.
right.
got it. Got it.
So it should just, so it was right,
Yep.
just to
Yep.
State Park
Yep,
Road.
to State Park Road.
Okay. So all we need is a couple of numbers from Christina and these changes. Good. Okay, what's next? 855,
Yeah, we did.
Vermont Watershed Grant. You want to skip to that?
Sure. Whose house I'm gonna sleep at tonight, because I'm not getting through my driveway after this one.
Is it snowing now?
No, blowing.
That's
Flooded 5 times today.
Oh, my God.
It's good for about 2.5 to 3 hours, and I did it last at 5:30.
Does, you know how Nushinskis are doing?
Wednesday, yeah.
Do you know how Nushinskis are? I meant to drive by there.
Yeah, they're close to the road.
I need your notes, Dean. What do I do with numbers?
I gotta walk 150 feet. I gotta walk a long way.
looking for the agenda?
Yeah, I'm looking for your notes. I was following them. I don't know how. I, as usual, lost them. I got them. There we go. Okay, we're up to the 855 item, Vermont Watershed Grant. Park and Wildlife wants to apply for another grant as they did in the past. Jenny will provide information. Okay. Past our bedtime, too.
So you probably got the draft version of the application last week, and then there's a draft wording. Okay, so you have a draft of the grant application and some wording for a letter of support to go in with it. And the deadline for the application is January 15th. After I sent this to Dean, I had sent it to Marty Illick, and she had a couple of comments. We also discussed whether it was possible for the Lewis Creek Association to help with funding next year. And it sounds like they may not have funds. So I revised the grant application to include the engineering services that it wasn't included in the original grant draft. So now the request would be for $2,500 instead of $2,020.
So you lost me on that because I see different numbers in here. The Site 2 project completed, okay, that was unintended cost, okay. Where's the cost?
Requested.
Not requested, 2,500, okay. Okay. So, do we have to participate?
I think, well, last year, I think you maybe made it, approved the letter of support, and that was sent in. And then we did submit the grant application. The park committee did. I'm trying to remember where there was a motion. I think the select board made a motion to allow the park committee to do that, something like that. I don't remember
Yeah,
exactly.
so approve the grant application, I guess what you're asking for, and authorize the chair to sign the letter of support.
Right.
Somebody like to make that motion?
I move to approve the Vermont Watershed Grant Program Watershed Grant Application 2018 on behalf of the Charlotte Park and Wildlife Refuge Oversight Committee to be submitted and to authorize the chair of the select board to sign the accompanying letter for the grant application.
And what will be the town's contribution?
0.
0?
We need a second.
Second.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, second.
Okay, so no, there's no contribution.
Okay.
Any comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, go back to 840.
Painless.
The contract for Steve Williams.
Okay, so for Thompson's Point wastewater system, the next 3 items are related to the Thompson's Point wastewater system. We have a yearly contract with Steve Williams, who's the operator, and a yearly contract with Civil Engineering Associates, which is provides engineering services. And both of those items feed into the budget, which is then used to bill wastewater fees to camp owners. So Steve Williams has been the operator for many years. The wastewater advisory committee voted to recommend to renew the contract for another year. The rate's the same as last year. The only addition would be if additional camps on Lanes Lane are connected to the system, he would be paid an additional $435 per camp. Civil Engineering Associates, their contract is an estimate of their cost, $7,000. They have not hit $7,000, I don't think ever.
So should we take one at a time?
Yep.
Is there a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to approve the contract with Stephen J. Williams, DBA SJW Docks, to operate the Thompson's Point wastewater system for the calendar year 2018.
Any further discussion?
How do we get, we've asked this a number of times, getting around the contracting not equal to the fiscal year?
We did ask the auditor, and he said you can do things that aren't quite in sequence with the fiscal year. Basically, if you're, in this case, it makes sense. The calendar year is when the operator actually works. So if we were to use the fiscal year and the operator left at the beginning or the end of the one fiscal year and we started another operator, it could really be problematic for the system. So Sullivan Powers said that fiscal year is used for the planning and for, or rather for record keeping, but you can do things like create contracts that aren't in sync with the fiscal year.
If the auditor likes it, I like it.
Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next one is civil engineering.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Civil Engineering Associates for engineering services for the Thompson's Point wastewater system for the calendar year 2018. And authorize the chair to sign it. I should have done that.
And you'll do the same for the first one we?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, good. Okay, any further comment on the civil engineering associate motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. So that is there and there. Thompson's Point leases, where are those?
Actually, the budget for Thompson's Point.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 19 budget for Thompson's Point wastewater system.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
And that's the spreadsheet, right? Okay. Any comments to that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's good. Okay, leases.
I have to run and get the leases, but you might have noticed one of the leases includes reference to a book and page from 1911 that includes additional land in addition to the prescribed lot. So that's what that is. It's a little bit different than any other leases, but that's what that reference is.
Which one is it? This one?
Yeah, let me grab it.
Bradley and...
Miriam Murray and Stan Monk.
Who's that? That's it and wife. Is there that's it and wife?
No, it's this one.
Lot 4 and 5?
See, land described in volume 20,
Oh, yeah.
page
Yeah.
360.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
This is before typewriters? 1911.
Oh, neat.
It's a reference that's been made in every single lease from 1911 on.
Oh, this particular page? Why did their lease have it then?
No, what I'm saying is all the leases
Oh.
for those property, for those lots have referenced that page in your hand every single time.
Well, let's mess it up.
Pretty good penmanship. Left-handed. Got a backward flow.
I'll have you know Georgia's winning 6-0, by the way.
Oh, what's the score?
6-0, Georgia's winning.
Oh, I'm hearing rumors that they're gonna win.
I come from a long line of Georgia fans.
Yeah, there's a lot of Alabamans in the senior center today. And they said Georgia's gonna win.
So that was Marion Murray and Stan Monk.
Yeah, we got that. Okay, so so these are all routine, right?
Yeah, they're all reasonable.
I'll make a motion to renew the 20-year lease to Douglas Marable for lots 102 and 103 at 556 Flat Rock Road.
Second.
And authorize the chair to sign.
Yeah.
Any comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ready for the next one?
Okay, I got 4 in a row, somebody else's turn.
So the first one was,
So the first one was 102, 103,
okay.
556 Flat Rock.
I move to renew a 20-year lease to Miriam Murray and Stan Monk for lots 4 and 5, plus additional land described in volume 20, page 361, and authorize the chair to sign.
A second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 And the next one?
Make a motion to renew 20-year lease, lot 167 at 560 North Shore Road to Lee Jensen and Carl Jensen, and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And the last one?
It's 3 lots. Huh? Lots.
Make a motion to approve the Thompson's Point leases for lots 187, 88, and 89, 189 shared at 988 North Shore Road. Renew the 20-year lease to Jennifer K.S. Scott and Kimberly B. Stoker, and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, here you go, Dan. Okay. Select board updates. I just have one comment. Mary put out an email. On the personnel policy, if you remember 3 weeks ago when we last met, the employee who we hired for the senior center required Medicare. She was in that age. So rather than making a special case for her, we all raised our hand and voted to update the policy to, in the section that covered the medical. So Mary has pointed out there could be some other changes, which I'm sure there are, that could be done, but we had agreed, and I'm asking if you guys want to vote or sign the personnel policy that covers the medical issue.
My comment on that was we refer to a specific company, and I don't think we should do that in a policy. I think we, instead of calling Blue Cross, we should call it the current carrier.
It doesn't affect this lady's anything.
No, but this covers her.
That makes sense.
Well, we talked about going over that personnel policy and shouldn't we do it all at one?
I'd rather fix something now, and if we need to fix one later, tackle that later.
Okay, that was the intent here. So this does say, does say Blue Cross Blue Shield in here.
I just think, yeah, I think a policy should be generic.
Yep.
Isn't there something about operating 20 employees or less, by the way, also? Isn't there, one of the, in Mary's email, she mentioned the 20 employee factor.
I don't remember saying that.
I didn't understand what that comment was. It was,
Because there's certain requirements when you have Medicare, Medicaid, and what you offer. And during the summer, I cut over 28 checks during the summer, so we have over 20 employees. So we've got to make sure that we fall into, we do things the right way according to the Medicare. So that needs to be researched a little bit, because we do classify, and we send out well over 20 W-2s. So we have well over 20 employees.
so what's the law that she's referring to?
There's something about what you can offer and what you can't offer. And it has something to do with, I believe, the last paragraph. You need to double check with Mary, because she's the one who's been communicating with the Blue Cross Blue Shield guy about the Medicare and the Medicaid. But I would double check with her about what the statement was the gentleman made. They had an email exchange. I'm not 100% sure of it, but that's why she sent you that email, was to make you aware that there is something that needs to be looked at there.
Okay, so why don't you check that out, the Blue Cross Blue Shield, and this will be on the counter, the intent, we wanted to sign it, and then I think it's action for us to look at other issues in the future, but let's get this one cleared. Okay. One other thing I want to tell you, Mary put out an email on the MOA with Fire and Rescue, and I sat down last Thursday, Friday with Tom, Meg, and went through all of Mary's issues, our issues, and Meg was there, Meg, Tom, Fritz was there. So we'll have a report, probably after we get the budget stuff done, that changes the MOA to update it, the things that are important, and we, the select board, can vote on it, make sure everybody's happy. So that was done. A lot of good comments. We're gonna get all the minutes, the capital equipment, budgets are all gonna be submitted when they get approved to clerk treasurer, town administrator, and the select board. So you can have all current information, which I think is good, because it's been dragging out a bit. But they have the meeting in January, they have the minutes, they don't get approved in February, so you're gonna get an approved minutes for January and February, so everybody has to realize it's gonna be 30 days after the meeting, but it's a process, and they're gonna make sure all the minutes are on our website, with Dean's help, I guess, so that you can have a continuous flow of the information. It'll be totally transparent, all the things that are agreed upon. Yes?
What was your meeting with that? Was it discussing how the MOA was gonna be worded or whatnot?
Oh, it's just going through all the comments to the MOA.
Right, so I was gonna say, I know there's a few people in the community that wanna be here when you guys redo the
Fine.
MOA at an open public meeting. So
Sounds good. So we're just trying to get a start on it. Takes quite a bit of time. Then you have to have people look at it, and we'll come up with a position, and then everybody can discuss it. We'll have both parties here. Okay? Any other select board updates?
So
the
I stopped by Office Furniture Exchange in Burlington and saw seats to replace these and to replace those. I can show you what I saw that might work, and if anyone wants to check them out, they have them there. It's on the corner of Battery Street and Maple Street. Yeah. So I was thinking of that one for. What?
For the audience?
No, that one for the table. This one here is for the audience.
Something really comfortable up here, and something miserable for those out there.
Yeah, that was a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, look through and see if there's something else that you'd like.
And you guys are a party of 5, but there's also a committee that's a party of 7. So do we get 7 big boy chairs? Or
No, these
just
aren't
5?
these chairs aren't big.
Well, I mean, do we get 7 for up there, or do we get 5?
As long as we're taken care of.
Well, I know, that would be your concern. I think I discussed that with Dean earlier.
It's the perks of the job.
In the budget. And the rug's getting done when, this next week?
Thursday, Friday, this week.
Yeah.
Far out.
We're probably gonna have a new rug smell. Is that gonna?
Toxic chemicals. Do we need to do the minutes? Should I make
Yes.
a motion to approve with the minutes of December 7th, 18th as may be amended?
Second.
I just had on line 228, I didn't nominate Christina for deputy health officer. I just did it for the health officer. And I checked VCAM today to be sure, but I said that.
Yeah, that would be right, because Carrie is the deputy, right?
Callie.
Callie.
Line 109, Mr. President suggested bonding $190,000 for 20 years to cover the cost of the 25-year.
What line was that?
190,000?
Yep. 50,000 I'd taken off to describe not paying for the 25 years worth of maintenance at $2,000 a year. So it was like spending 140, but the bond would be for 190. And then another 75,000 was for the other projects, which is mainly the tennis court, or the playground. And then the next sentence, the fire and rescue fund. Oh, I see what you said. The fire and rescue found hybrid bonding. Okay, yep. Sorry.
Any other comments? All in favor of the minutes as amended, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
So our next meeting, if you all remember, Monday, I believe, is Martin Luther King. So this is a Tuesday. Tuesday on the 16th is our next meeting.
Right.
And then the following Monday, the 22nd, we'll sign off on the articles and sign off on the budget.
Yep, have the town plan public hearing.
And the public hearing for the town plan.
And when will the new town plan be ready for us to
We'll
have
print
hard
copies
copy?
tomorrow.
What's that?
We'll print copies
Tomorrow's
of the town
Tuesday,
plan tomorrow.
so it's a week.
Anything else?
But I also get copies of the changes,
Yeah,
the list.
yeah, I'll check to see what they're
That's
all.
all online,
yeah.
isn't it?
What's that?
Yes, it is.
All the
It
changes
is
and
all
stuff are
online.
Oh, okay, I'll look
The
at it.
spreadsheets and everything.
That's fine.
I did have one item. I know Mary commented, I had noticed myself that the ordinance for Thompson's Point wastewater has a lot of things that are not up to date. And in reviewing some of those, some of them have to deal with the funds and how the rents, the terminology for how the rents are collected for the capital improvements and the operating. And in going through it, I thought it would be helpful to be able to talk to the town attorney about it. So I wondered if you want to delegate Fritz or Elaine to join me in talking to the town attorney about the Thompson's Point ordinance.
You're on the committee, are you? Or why not Mary?
She could join.
That should be the
Sure.
person.
Yeah.
She's the one who's way more knowledgeable than any of us.
Yep.
Mary should be the one. I'm sorry?
Especially the billing end of it.
Well,
A lot
and
of
she could
sensitive
actually
information.
help to keep costs down by answering a lot of questions
So it
that
sounds like you and Mary
you
worked
and
it out.
Mary, yeah.
Good. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, aye? Good, thank you. Good meeting.